So, I'm just going to react to this. I'm not going to use much words for this one, but he actually goes through, I think, a couple of other costumes that I went over in my video that I showed about the censorship of Eve's costumes. I think he might show one additional one, but he actually, yeah, DreadRoborts, I'm subscribed to you. Seems like he's a very down-to-earth, simple, simplistic, very base person, very rational, a very intellectual person that just really seems to have a clear ability, a clear mind, and a clear, unbiased way to judge things. So I'm going to react to him. I've always liked his videos. I find like he's somebody that, yeah, it's very base, very grounded, and he's somebody that's fair. He seems like a very fair person in his judgment, and so shout outs to DreadRoborts, one of my YouTubers that I've subscribed to. He goes over a couple of things in here. I think I've already shown the censorship of the uncensored and censored costumes of Eve from Stellar Blade. I've already shown in my own videos 2 of those costumes that got censored, but DreadRoborts kind of shows you those 2 costumes as well, possibly a 3rd outfit and costume for Eve from Stellar Blade. But he actually goes through a couple of things as well that I think are very important, and I just want to really react to his video. I don't know if I can play the whole video because maybe possibly copyright issues, so I might not play the full video just to be on the safe side, just that way I don't get like slapped with anything like that. So I'm going to be breaking up this video, and the way I'm going to be doing that is just clicking on certain portions of the video and like kind of just skipping through the things that I feel like aren't really relevant. I would play the whole video, but I don't want to get in trouble if there is a possibility of getting in trouble from watching the whole video, and because I'm not comfortable with using editing software yet, I don't really want to risk it. It's definitely not worth risking it for the biscuit for getting myself in trouble by just letting the whole video play and reacting to it. So I'm going to try and break some of it up if I can, just to avoid that. But once I said, and shout out to DreadRoborts, he seems a very how can I say this? A very fair, intellectual person that kind of is a very rational and, like I said, just a fair person in general, overall. So I'm going to react to this, and I'm going to watch it briefly and see what he says. Like I said, I do know he kind of goes through 2 of the costumes outfits that were censored, but he also goes through, like I was saying, the promise from Shift Up, the studio Shift Up, about releasing Stellar Blade worldwide with no censorship. And you're going to see it as soon as I start this recording. But here we go. Oh, wait, I'm already recording. So I'm going to go in full screen mode and continue playing it.
The game on the day of its review embargo release, where people could talk about the game and what they thought about it, give their honest reviews, and let people decide if they want to buy the game. But a lot of people suggested that the media came out in a coordinated attack, since their posts of their articles seemingly came out in a similar time frame after an image was leaked, conflating 2 different words to make it seem like Shift Up was trying to be racist, putting racist graffiti on a wall to push.
So what he's referring to is the hard R. What happened was, like I was saying in my earlier videos, these game developers give free copies of early editions to journalists. So these journalists basically get a free copy of the game that's about to be released, and they get a chance to play it before anybody actually purchased the game to own it. Before any actual customers actually get their own copy, and so journalists get a chance to play through the full build pretty early before any consumer or customer. And what he's mentioning here is one of the journalists took 2 words. One word was a graffiti, which was hard, and then there was an R shop for Roseanne, or there's the initial of the person who owned the shop. So basically you had hard and a graffiti, and then right beside it to the right was that R shop. And because it said hard R, which I didn't even know myself, that was like a slang term for a racist term, but a slang term that was racist. I didn't even conclude to that myself. I didn't even know what it meant. I just meant, I thought it was myself personally. I thought they meant like rated R, and hard R as in like rated R, because in the promise of Stellar Blade being censored in all countries and being shipped out to all countries uncensored. So that's what I personally thought myself when I seen that. The hard R was just basically, the graffiti hard, and then the R for the Roseanne's shop, which was our shop. I thought that was just like a little clever, hard R as in like hard R, rated R. That because this game was supposed to be rated mature, which means that it's almost pretty close to being a rated R game. I don't think there's a rating for R, but it matures very close to that, and this game was supposed to be rated mature. So I think that's why the developers put that hard R there, was more so just to be like, oh, this game's like rated mature, and and if the fact like they kept saying that they don't really want to have the game censored in any form whatsoever. I think that's why they put that there as a reference to like, shifts up stance against censorship. So this is what he's talking about right here, was basically the graffiti hard, and then beside it to the right was our shop, which was the initial of the person who owned the shop.
Some kind of anti-black message, and yeah, that was patched out in a future patch. Apparently the person who leaked it hated Grum so much and was two-faced, and that was a very interesting situation to see the fallout of. But now we have a bigger problem, because what's happening now is that Stellar Blade has been released. It has sold a lot of copies, a lot of people are enjoying the game, but there are some who are noticing in the day one patch for the physical copy release as well as the digital release, there has been content in the game that has been censored. Now, a lot of the blame is being put onto Sony, yet some people are suggesting that Shift Up is also to blame. We're going to be going over that in this video.
So, I kind of definitely agree with what he's saying as well here. I do feel like Sony's the corporate behind this, force of censorship, this push of censorship. I don't really think it's as much Shift Up as it is Sony. I think because Sony's kind of holding all the cards, since and it's a game that they're putting on Sony's platform, and ultimately Sony gets the final say and holds all the cards. I think and the problem was Shift Up might have wanted really to release the uncensored version, but because they kind of knew that and they weren't really able to do that, they kind of got comfortable with just settling with releasing the censored version and just allowing that to kind of feel like that was the 10 version, because they knew that if they went with the uncensored version, and they would have like a lot of difficulties getting the okay by Sony, since Sony's really holding all the cards since this game's going on their platform. So I think there was a lot of pressure on Shift Up to censor their game, and just pretty much having to navigate around the nonsense of Sony, and it's the hypocrisy, and it's just overall Sony's like censorship that they seem to want to keep pushing in video games. So I think as much as it might have been intentional, I think that intentional was something that Shift Up kind of had to get comfortable with as that being their final product, because Sony definitely most likely wasn't going to allow them to release a game that had the uncensored content. And they were kind of in a situation where they had to just release it as it is now with the patch, and just be comfortable with that being their final version. And like I said, just be comfortable with that being their final version, and them wanting to release that specifically, even though like intentionally, and what they really wanted was the uncensored version. So, and I think and they were kind of forced in the corner and pressured by Sony to have that as their final version, even though I'm pretty sure, and that's something that, and they really didn't want to do at first, but they had to get comfortable with that version, that censored version, to make sure, and they can get that game released. And that's kind of what happens, and the thing is Sony and Xbox, they have a monopoly on games and really control and dictate what kind of content are in games, because these games are going on their platforms. And unfortunately, like, the fact is, we have a lot of woke individuals working within these companies, Sony and Xbox, and they have a monopoly on video games and what kind of content goes on their platforms. Because honestly, we really only have an Xbox and PlayStation, and we got PC, and that's really the only saving grace right now that I think a lot of gamers have is the fact that we have PC, where we have some kind of platform which isn't excluding content or in censoring their games. Now, that's not to say that there's no individuals that are woke working in in certain platforms or emulators or things that kind of allow you to play video games on PC. But I'm sure there are woke people within those industries as well, dealing specifically with the PC, and they might start doing this as well, promising uncensored content and then allowing a video game company to put a video game on their platform and then enforcing them to censor it. PC might be doing that as well. We've already been seeing it with PlayStation, Xbox. So yeah, and then the thing is, I think we're gonna just need more systems to have more options. I think we just need somebody to kind of make a whole new system and a whole new platform other than PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. So, and maybe, and there can be some competition. Because right now, PlayStation, Xbox, and PC have been around for so long, and there is really nothing competing against it anymore. If you ever want to play a game, you're forced in a situation where you have to pretty much choose between PlayStation and Xbox or PC. And because we don't have the variability of platforms to play games on, that's pretty much why we're getting games censored and why video game companies are forced to censor their games, because there's just no other, really not a lot of options for them when they want to bring their game to a platform.
Together, what Sony is doing, what Shift Up is saying, how Stellar Blade is being affected, and how gamers are reacting to these changes. Beginning with this post from Stellar Blade that says, Stellar Blade offers the same uncensored version in all countries, including the Japanese version. So this is them promising to gamers that they are releasing the game completely uncensored. Now, it did get community noted later on, saying the director of Stellar Blade addresses the censorship himself on a video. The game is indeed censored when patched. So that is confirmed. Now, people were...
and I think this is what's making a lot of people very angry. This game is rated mature, and usually within a mature game, you have partial nudity, even sometimes full nudity, gore, blood, violence, and suggestive themes. So, for Shift Up to claim no censorship because this game is rated mature, you should be able to see these things, because the whole purpose of rating your game mature is to kind of allow adults awareness of what kind of content that they can expect from a video game. And when you're rating it mature, this is the kind of content that any gamer, whether if you're a male or a female gamer, would be expecting in a game that's rated mature. And such as the nudity, partial nudity, intense gore and violence, suggestive themes, drug use. This is all content of that should be pretty much within the realm, within that rating that should exist and be part of that game. So I think the fact is, that's the one thing besides the lies of releasing this a patch that censored a game of Stellar Blade when the Shift Up promised they were going to release a game that was uncensored worldwide, is the fact that also the game is rated mature, and this is content you would expect from to be contained in a rated mature game.
Praising Stellar Blade at the time, Endymion said, based, I bought 2 copies, not even kidding, I did. There's Packer Girl saying, does that mean Shift Up can guarantee that the English subtitles and dub will be uncensored? Now, people were worried about the localization of the characters' dialogue, but as it turns out, that is not the issue. It's outfits and blood that are being censored in this game after it is...
So I've actually already, on my YouTube channel, I have one labeled in the title, expressing Eve's censorship and uncensored version of costumes and expressing it with anger. I have another one that's more calmly showing a comparison between the uncensored and censored outfits of Eve from Stellar Blade. I'm gonna do another one. When I do another one, I'm just gonna not talk at all. It's gonna be listed under Stellar Blade, comparing censored and uncensored outfits of Eve from Stellar Blade. No commentary. So that one, I'm not gonna have any commentary. I'm gonna specifically make sure to title it "No Commentary." Stellar Blade comparing Eve's censored and uncensored outfits and costumes. So I'm gonna do one more video of that, but that one that I'm gonna be printing up and uploading soon is gonna be it's gonna not have any commentary in it from me.
Has already been released. From what I understand, the base physical copy of the game that is unpatched contains the original version of the game that is completely uncensored, and that is the version of the game that Shift Up is selling to people. It's the day one.
I'm also subscribed to what was it? This person right here. I'm sorry, I forget his name again. I have 80 people I'm subscribed to. I'm also I'm pretty sure I'm subscribed to this gentleman as well right here, Amion. I'm subscribed to him as well. Also love his videos. Same with the person right now that I'm watching. They both do an excellent job. I think they're being fair and not being biased, and being just generally good at calling out stuff for what it is without any kind of favoritism towards gamers or journalists. I think they're very fair, and I think they're very honest, and that's something that I think and that as a YouTuber will bring you a long way if and you're authentic and you're just honest, and you're not trying to be two-faced, or you're not trying to use references and videos to kind of make sure embellish on your narrative, and just give all the facts. And I think that Imion and this person right here do a good job at and trying to stick with the facts, and I think that's something that people have an easier time relating to, because honestly I think people just want to know the truth. I think a lot of people just want to know the truth and not be lied to. And unfortunately, a lot of people feel like Stellar Blade, Shift Up, they lie to consumers and customers.
Patch that is apparently changing a bunch of these things, so a lot of the blame is being put onto Sony. And we're going to take a look at a couple of these things that are being censored, including this one. And I thought that this was one of the best images to show off what's going on.
So I said in my video, I think I've labeled it a couple of times now, the 3 stages of censorship. Well, really is 2 stages of censorship: light censorship and heavy censorship, then uglification. This is just in the West. The East is kind of following those 3 stages as well, but they're kind of South Korea is on the first stage, which is light censorship, it seems like. But if you look at the East and places like Japan, they're kind of on heavy censorship. And like I said, light censorship is just adding more fabric around the breast to cover up as much skin as possible. So and covering up the side boob, the under boob, and the cleavage with the clothing, so none of that skin is showing. And then changing, altering parts around the butt and around the pelvis, and adding more fabric around the thighs, the waist, the hips, and so on. So always and every time they want to censor a character, and it's only towards female video game characters, it's always in censoring the cleavage or the under boob or the side boob by adding more cloth and fabric. They did this with Tifa Lockhart with the remakes, and then adding more cloth and material and fabric around the pelvis and the butt, such as well as the hips and the waist. So if you can look closely here, she doesn't have that black lace underneath the bunny suit, and that's the censored version. But the uncensored version, she doesn't have that cloth underneath the bunny suit. And you can actually see cleavage, and it seems like for some reason when it comes to the West, especially gaming platform companies such as Sony and Xbox, they're really against it. They'll let bear sex happen from Baldur's Gate 3. They'll have a person that looks like a transgender get full on drilled in the back from in a sex scene. But yet somehow cleavage is a problem. Although they're willing to completely accept full nudity and full on sex scenes of furry animals and transgenders, or and chicks that look like dudes, and they're fine when those characters are portrayed sexually, very provocatively, especially in in a full nude scene or a full on sex scene. So it's pretty hypocritical. And like I said, and like, but yet something like a little bit of cleavage is problematic, is a problem, because and it's something that male gamers enjoy. It's something that straight male gamers appreciate. Like I said, not every straight male video game character cares. I mean, not every straight male video game not character, but gamer cares about things like this. But there are some straight male gamers that do care about things like this. And this is content that shouldn't be excluded from a game, and because it shouldn't be excluded from them, especially when you're getting a regular game rated M for mature. So, like you see right here, so I'm sorry, I'm talking.
It says, we'll need resources to keep games without updates in consoles and PC. This is already a trend to censor games post-launch in secret. So if you can see this outfit, this is one of the things that are being censored. Now, I can already hear people screaming in the background saying, oh, Dread, all you care about is that women are half naked in video games. No, this game is rated M for mature. It's already supposed to have blood, gore, and women with accentuated proportions in it. People have paid...
which is exactly what I was saying earlier. I paid basically, I'm Canadian, and I paid a total of $105 both times for the digital deluxe edition and the standard standard physical edition. So each time for buying those 2 copies of Stellar Blade, each time cost me $105. So if you add both of those together, I paid basically $210 to have 2 copies of Stellar Blade. The reason why I did that is because I was promised that I would be getting the game uncensored. That's why I did it. And I bought the game because when they said uncensored, this costume to the left is what I was expecting. The kind of material and costumes that I was going to be getting for a game that's rated mature, and that was supposed to be uncensored. And and I spent $210. Anticipating that this is the kind of outfits I would be getting. The outfit to the left, the one that's not censored. But then all of a sudden the patch came out, then I got this costume right here, the censored version. So I'm very disappointed. I was definitely, it was a bait and switch. I was definitely lied to. I was definitely betrayed, and I put my trust and faith in Shift Up, which was definitely the wrong studio to do it, and it cost me $210. And like he said, it's not that I wanted, like DreadRoborts said, it's not that I want to see a woman half naked, which I do, but that's not the only reason why I care about it. What I care about mostly is the fact, like, I don't like censorship, and I think for me that's more the issue. Sure, I like to see women that are half naked because I'm sexually I'm drawn to women that look attractive and that are willing to expose their skin. And that's just not, even if it's not sexual, it's just something that visually I appreciate and that I admire. Is women having that attractiveness, and when a video game character that's a female video game character looks like this, I find this visually pleasing, even if I'm not thinking sexually at the moment. Just this alone is very physically pleasing to me and aesthetically pleasing to me to look at. And it's more so like I just I really admire being able to have the possibility and the opportunity to kind of look at characters like this that and actually have sex appeal and fan service. So, and like for me, like I said, as much as I do want to see like attractive and gorgeous female characters and that are showing skin, such as cleavage, just sex appeal in general. It doesn't even matter if it's cleavage. I do want to see cleavage, but I just in general I just want to see that sex appeal and fan service. So, and when I see that this is being excluded from a game because somehow it's against woke journalists are against male gamers having the male gaze, it is a problem. I think censorship, like I said, should never be in the game. I believe in freedom of expression, free speech, and a free market. And freedom of expression, you should allow to be as artistically expressive as you want to, and if that means even if the character's not half naked but completely naked or half naked or not naked at all, and the person should have a right to enjoy that content regardless if the character's in half naked. And when you change that, you're purposely taking out a form of expression, artistic expression, that really has every right to be in the game. Just because somebody's offended, and for you taking it out from being offended. So it's more so like DreadRoborts said, it's the censorship that I really have an issue with. I don't like games that are censored. I want a game where I don't feel like something's being taken away from me. or content's being taken away from me just because somebody else is offended on everybody else's behalf. And I completely agree. It's kind of both for me. It's not so much just the censorship, but for me, it's kind of both that I want to see, gorgeous and attractive female video game characters that have sex appeal and fan service, and that are walking around half naked, and sometimes, and sometimes, not all the time. They don't always have to be completely naked or half naked. I don't mind when female characters are clothed as well, but I want to have options. I want to be able to play a game where I feel like I have options as a gamer and as a consumer and a customer, that, and I have options, and that those options aren't taken away from me like I'm a child. So I think that's what it is I want to have options. I don't want to feel like content's being taken away from me like I'm a child and having those options taken away from me just because somebody else is offended on behalf of everybody else. So and then that's kind of like why I don't like censorship. So with Robert saying, that's one issue that I have with this is the censorship more so than anything.
For this, because this is exactly what was advertised to them. But what you see here is in the unpatched disc, for example, there is nothing being censored here, but in the top right photo, they added a cover for the cleavage of Eve's character. So this is something that I am against. I am against censorship. I believe that if you do buy a product, you should be receiving what you paid for. And
I completely agree. If I put my money on something and I'm expecting there to be certain content, I want to have that option to actually have access to that content. I don't want to feel like I'm having a content that I'm paying for stripped away from me because somebody else is offended on somebody else's behalf. And I want to feel like that option to be able to enjoy that content that was intended to be in the game, to be intact with the game, and not censored or left out of the game and taken away just because because it has a right to be in there. I don't like censorship, and I agree. I'm just really don't like censorship. If I'm paying for a game, I want all the options. I want all the content. All right, that's what I'm paying for the game. That's why I'm paying pretty money for towards the game, because I want to have options. I want to have content. I don't want to have content and options taken away from me or excluded from me like I'm a child. Especially when, and this is the kind of content I'm expecting it based off the rating of the maturity of the game.
And what was advertised to people in the trailers was uncensored content. And it turns out that after people have already purchased it, they are censoring it. Now, Shift Up has come out and said something about this. The creator claims that the version they see patched is the true version that they had always intended. Now, a lot of people think that they are just trying to save face because Sony is breathing down their necks. But we'll find out more about that in just a second. There is more that they have censored. It says right here from Bounding into Comics, as somebody quoted, Stellar Blade director responds after patch censors holiday rabbit outfit, claims updated design was always intended as final version. But that's not the only thing that they have censored. They've censored other outfits as well. For example, on the left
this is another costume that I showed as well in my comparing Stellar Blade, comparing censorship of Eve's costumes, expressed with anger and more commonly expressed. The one with the anger, I was swearing quite a bit, yelling and saying fuck off to Shift Up and Sony. With the one that's titled Expressing Myself with Anger. And the other one that expressed myself more calmly, I wasn't as vocally angry. I was a little more calm. I wasn't swearing or anything like that. But I also kind of went over this outfit and costume for Eve as well, besides the holiday bunny outfit. And once again, like I said, where did they actually cover up and what did they cover up and censor? Once again, cleavage. Because like I said, apparently, in full-on nude scenes with animals and from Border Skates 3 and in full-on sex scenes with female characters that look like a dude from The Last of Us 2, that is really showing full nudity is perfectly acceptable and fine. But when there's a gorgeous character that looks like Eve, somehow that's not acceptable, and that's problematic. Why? Because once again, Eve obviously looks like a female character, fully body scanned from a real female model, let alone that's a maximum cover model. And so this is a female character in the real world that Eve was scanned from, that purposely does this stuff because it's part of her career and she has no problem being partially nude or being very provocative with what she's wearing. So this is actually ridiculous. But once again, why? Because they censor this, but they let things like full-on animal sex from Baldur's Gate 3, and then what was it? The full-on like new season sex scenes from The Last of Us 2. Well, because one, Abby doesn't look like a female; she looks like a dude. And then Baldur's Gate 3, you're able to make your characters gender neutral. So and it's not okay, and like that stuff is perfectly fine. But this stuff right here, just because Eve is a very gorgeous and attractive female character that actually has female proportions that might not be exaggerated, because this is a full body and might be exaggerated, but it really isn't, because don't remember, this is literally a full body scan of a South Korean model, a full body scan, not a partial body scan, a full body scan of a South Korean model. So these proportions are not exaggerated. That's the only thing that I disagree with some of the YouTubers I'm subscribed to. I think one or two of them said that this character is purposely exaggerated. It's not. It's a full body scan, and the only thing that was altered was the face. But other than that, the body has been left intact. But once again, like as you can see here, covering up the cleavage, and this is the cybernetic bondage outfit for Eve, and where the main area that they covered once again, right there, the breast, the cleavage. The one thing that they always seem to want to cover is the cleavage, because somehow, like I said, that's a problem.
Side, they make these small changes, and this is why people are worried about this, because usually when gaming companies come in and patch things like this in post patches after people have already bought the game, and this is why they are not happy about it as well. For example,
and then this one right here as well. I wasn't able to show this in one of my other videos because I only had 2 YouTube videos that showed the same costume right here that had the leggings. But if you look from DreadRoborts video, like he even shows right here, like I wasn't able to show it in my videos, because when I was looking at the two YouTube videos of the censored and uncensored costumes, when this costume came up, I was just showing this one right here for both YouTube videos. So I knew this was censored, because if you look at this model right here, no leggings. If you look at the one over here, leggings.
For this costume, they gave her a pantyhose to cover up her legs, and they did the same thing here, where they removed visibility of the cleavage by adding in a black lace top to cover it. So,
see, once again, this is the crap that I'm talking about. It's like they're so against freaking cleavage. Like, what the hell is wrong with cleavage? It's a part of a fucking woman's body. There's nothing wrong with cleavage. It's a part of a woman's body. They have cleavage. I'm sorry, but if a woman actually has a decent sized rack, a decent sized breast size, they're gonna have cleavage. There should be nothing wrong with being people shouldn't be ashamed of cleavage. It's only freaking natural for a woman to have cleavage when they have a decent size cup size. When they have more than a B cup, when they have C cups and D cups, when they're wearing tops, they're going to have cleavage. There's nothing to be ashamed about when it comes to cleavage. There's nothing wrong about that. It's natural for a woman to have cleavage when they have a reasonable size, when they have reasonable sized breasts, when they're wearing something. All right? Like, it's...
they're doing things like this in post patches after people have already bought the game, and this is why they're not happy about it. But they're also going as far as removing blood spatter from the gameplay. As you can see in the left side here, from the demo, there is a ton of blood spatter when conducting an execution on an enemy. But on the right, you can't see any blood. Now, some people have suggested, well, that's just because they were trying to be flashy and show people a really cool part of the game to advertise it for the full version. And then other people have said, well, it's the performance settings so that there isn't any kind of frame rate drop, and that's why she doesn't have any blood on her on the right side. No, there are people who have confirmed in their gameplay that they have removed this blood spatter, and I actually made a post about this contesting the very idea of Sony doing something like this, and here's the post right here. The hypocrisy of Sony is unreal. With Bloodborne on the left, 2015, and Stellar Blade on the right. 10 years apart, one game is censored and the other is not, even though in Bloodborne, not only do you have many bosses that puke blood on you sometimes, but you can get completely covered in blood from just slicing people up in that game. I mean, you've got blood brains and guts all over your body when you're attacking people. And this is a Japanese developer. It's Bandai Namco From Software that made that game back in 2015. And again, people have made the argument that, well, it's 10 years apart. Sony was different back then, but they have always tried to do things like this. It's not the first or last time that they have done it. But they want to censor Stellar Blade, which is already rated M for mature. It's made for adults, and it has proportionate accentuation of body parts in the game on the female models, and it has ultra gore and violence. I mean, that is what was intended, right?
It's kind of the only thing I disagree with DreadRoborts is the proportions being exaggerated. Once again, this is the full body scan of a South Korean model. I've looked at her Instagram, and like, there's nothing really exaggerated about her, really all that much at all, to be honest. But I think that's just basically perspective-wise. But other than that, like, he's pretty correct about everything else.
So why are they changing it after people have already bought it and then saying that this is the final version? None of this makes any sense. But that's fine. We'll just pretend that Sony is A-okay and that this censorship makes perfect sense. A lot of people are okay with this and are saying, well, just forget about it. You know, don't think about it. It's okay if we have a little bit of censorship. At least we have Stellar Blade as a game. Jack Can said in response, wouldn't this...
Alright, well, see, that's actually not alright. It doesn't matter that at least we got Stellar Blade. If you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Like, the fact that we were actually able to get Stellar Blade is a nice thing, but the fact is that at the same time, it doesn't take away from the game it doesn't take away from the game being censored. Like, the fact is, even though we got a game like Stellar Blade and a character like E from Stellar Blade, which is in a way is a win, in a way it's still a loss because the game was still censored. So, and then because we got something that we normally didn't get, doesn't take away from the fact that it doesn't take away from something else. The game got censored regardless of the fact that we got Eve, and it doesn't change also the fact that the game still was censored regardless. So yeah, that doesn't change anything. The game was still censored. It was a rated M for mature video game, and it was censored, and we were promised it wasn't going to be.
Fall under a possible class action lawsuit under Section 43A of the Lanham Act, since the game was advertised as being uncensored and there is proof of censorship, taking the uncensored marketing proof and Microsoft talking points about female clothing. And I wanted to share it with you guys to see what you all think about it. But A, civil action, any person who, or in connection with any goods or services or any container for goods, uses in commerce any word, term, name, symbol, or device, or any combination thereof, or any false designation of origin, false or misleading description of fact, or false or misleading representation of fact. And it goes on to say in B, in commercial advertising, misrepresents the nature, characteristics, qualities, or geographic origin of his or her or another person's goods or services. So the suggestion being made here is that they could be liable legally if they were falsely advertising to gamers that this is their game, but then they give us a different version on the final.
You know, and honestly, that's exactly what they did. They were advertising this game to not be censored whatsoever, that we're going to get like full mature themes, and it was why I got the rated M for mature, and why gamers were, and what they were, the content they were expecting in the game was mature themes such as partial nudity, intense violence, gore, and all that other stuff that usually comes with that rating of rated M for mature. And then when so, like, those are the two things that were very misleading. One, that they advertised this game with no censorship whatsoever, and they specifically, so they can get the M rating for the video game. But then when you get the video game, there's nothing really M rating about it. Like, when I play the game, I feel like I'm playing a rated T. Yeah, or like 18, rated 18, T18, you know, and I don't feel like I'm playing a rated M mature video game. Because, like I said, the content that comes in a rated M mature video game, you know, and is nudity, partial nudity, violence, gore, blood, and then etc. and so on. So we didn't really get the game we were promised from Shift Up whatsoever. And honestly, I don't even think it deserves the M rating. There's a lot of stuff about it that was heavily censored, and it was censored to the point where it shouldn't even get the M rating anymore. It should get more like the T rating, rated for teens. Honestly, because the thing that was supposed to be within the rated M, we didn't get any of that whatsoever. So it was that was one thing that was a complete fabrication and a complete straight out lie. as well as, and the fact like they promised that we were going to get a game with no censorship, but yet, as you can see, there was like at least 2 costumes and outfit from Eve that got censored.
Final product. And of course, we have the Stellar
And if it was me, I would definitely be bringing Shift Up to court, or at least Sony to court. I would be bringing either Shift Up or Sony to court. I think because Sony's more at fault to this, I think it's Sony that should be brought to court. But I definitely think Shift Up should be held accountable for this as well.
Blade creator himself to confirm these things, as I went on to Reddit to check out this video from his interview where he stated himself that this was the final version of the game they intended. Not a lot of people trust this, but regardless, I want to show you guys this so that you can hear it for yourselves.
저희가 최종적으로 여러분들께 보여드리고자 하는 것은 1.0002 버전의 의상이 같습니다.
So thoughts on this matter. They're not trusting fully what this guy is saying. They think that a lot of the blame is...
Yeah, so I think he just said that like it was the final version was the 10 version, but I honestly disagree with that. I think, and they were kind of forced to be comfortable with that being the final version. I think, and they were under a lot of pressure from Sony to kind of censor their stuff, and for them to really make sure that their game was able to be released, they had to really navigate, very shallow waters with Sony, because Sony holds all the cards. Like I said, there's not a lot of systems out there. We only have Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, and right now, they're really a monopoly because there's not really much variety or competition for these platforms. Considering that we only have 2 platforms and then 1 PC, where PC really wasn't focused on video games for the longest time. It was actually only just 2 platforms that were in competition against each other, which was PlayStation and Xbox. So we didn't really have a lot of variety of games and where they can go, and because of that reason, and it became where PlayStation and Xbox held the cards. So, and I kind of wish also allowed them to put that censorship and that pressure of censorship on developing game companies. And I think right now, this person right here, the director for Stellar Blade, and for the director and the owner, I believe, of Shift Up. I don't know if he's an owner, but like he's just in saving face. I'm just putting on face right now, because I think if it was up to him and he had no restrictions, we would be getting the uncensored version. But, I think he has to be comfortable with, I'm just releasing the censored version because of the pressure that's put on him by Sony. And his company and him. I just have to get comfortable with that being their final version. And I think it's more so that it's not really what they wanted, but they had to be comfortable with that being what they wanted. I think that's what happened, honestly, is that, and there was just too much resistance from Sony. They wanted to get their game out. They didn't want it to get delayed. They put a lot of money and effort into this game, so they had to get, and they were forced in a situation where they had to get comfortable with that being their final product. And that's really what I think happened.
Still to be put onto Sony, because they feel that even though these textures that Shift Up made for this game for release may have already been in place, much of the argument is leaning towards, well, Sony probably discussed it with Shift Up way prior to them even starting to design the game. But I don't know if I buy that theory, because the base game for the physical copy is the version that is unpatched, and that contains everything completely uncensored. Why would they have to censor it anyway? Because of the fact that it's rated M for mature. And let's not pretend that Shift Up and Sony are exactly on the best of terms. I'm pretty sure that they admitted in another interview that they were being pressured by Sony, and it says right here in this interview from IGN a while back, where the interviewer asked, "Speaking of which, Mr. Kim, I wanted to ask you if there were any fights with Sony Interactive Entertainment since they are publishing Stellar Blade." And Kim said, as he glanced at these Sony staff members in the room and laughs, "The people at Sony are very, very nice." And then he goes on to say the staff members are pulling faces I've never seen before. I wish the readers of this article could see it. So I wonder if the Sony staff were giving him wide-eyed looks or just like saying, no, don't stop talking. And it's clear that there is tension between these two and that one of them is most likely breathing down the other's neck. It's not the first time that Shift Up or other gaming companies have tried to save face and not throw Sony under the bus because of the fact that they're the publisher of the game, and Sony has done a pretty good job of promoting Stellar Blade to gamers. And there's no doubt that it contributed to a lot of the people who have bought the game. The pre-order sales were through the roof in other countries, so I can totally understand why he may be sitting there right now saying, oh yeah, there are internal discussions about this, but this is the final version of the game, because this is something that Sony has done in the past and something that they will probably do again if people do not speak up about it. But again, there are still a lot of people who are saying, well, this is Shift Up's fault and this is them not staying true to their original vision, and therefore this is discrediting them for everything they have done. But
So yeah, I kind of agree with that. You know, I honestly hold Shift Up just as accountable as Sony. I think though, like I said, because they were put on a lot of pressure, because Sony held all the cards, and they wanted to make money for the amount of effort and money and the amount of money it cost them to develop Stellar Blade, knowing that how profitable it was going to be for Sony as well as Shift Up. I think Shift Up kind of had to like allow Sony to hold all the cards, and then allow and you know, and kind of be as cooperative as they could be with Sony, because it was really the only way that probably Sony was going to let them release that game under certain conditions and terms. So I think, like I said, I think that he had a very different version of Stellar Blade in mind that he wanted to release, but the company Shift Up really just had to get comfortable with what they released, because Sony was holding all the cards, and Sony was really kind of had the power to kind of dictate what kind of content they would allow in the game before it was released. So I think most of the blame falls on Sony. I think some of it falls on Shift Up for bending the knee, but I think really there's not much you can do, and I think they really didn't have a choice. I appreciate that they kind of put up a fight as much as they could, but at the end of the day, like I said, Sony has the final say and the final word, and as you can see, that's why he's kind of saying that he's going to talk to Sony, because like, considering that it's Sony that's publishing the game, like he can't really go above them when it comes to Stellar Blade. And if anybody's to blame for this stuff, it's definitely Sony, more than anybody. Even though I still hold a bit of accountability to Shift Up, you know, and for still, you know, I'm bending the knee to censorship.
Do believe that you can still like Stellar Blade, you can still buy it and play it while speaking up for yourself. As both a customer and as somebody who plays video games, that this isn't the way to go. Day One Patch Kid says the ESRB rating system exists for a purpose. M-rated games are intended for mature audiences. If you persist in baiting and switching us, I may simply allow my PS Plus subscription to lapse and opt not to renew, favoring platforms that afford us the respect of adults.
And kind of this is what I was saying too, is that, you know, I'm an adult, I'm not a little child, and I don't feel like I need somebody making decisions on my behalf, taking content away from me that I actually feel is perfectly acceptable and reasonable for me. And that's the kind of thing that pisses me off with this censorship, is really the censorship is kind of like being put in a game to dictate what's appropriate for me and what isn't, when I'm clearly old enough to make that decision for myself. And when you're going to be making a game that's mature and you're purposely like putting that what was it called? Yeah, the ESRB rating on a game, the cover of a game, like that's enough to explain what kind of content I can expect in a game. And when I'm looking at that ESRB rating, like I'm specifically looking at that BSR ratings because before I buy the product, I want to know what kind of content that I can expect. And if I'm getting ESRB rating of mature, I'm expecting there to be full nudity, partial nudity, gore, intense violence, drug use, suggestive themes. And like, that's what I'm expecting when I see that ESRB rating. And it's funny how, like, I was even talking earlier about, what was it? The Last of Us, Cyberpunk, and even Baldur's Gate 3. that, in The Last of Us 2, you can have pretty much a female that looks literally like has the body of a man getting like full on sex scenes and full nude and like pound in the rear, while just getting drilled in the rear from a dude. And then you can have Cyberpunk that pretty much like has full nudity. And then you can have like, in Boulder Skates 3 that has on full on like nude scenes and sex scenes. And like all this stuff is acceptable on the screen right now when it comes to The Last of Us 2 and Boulder Skates 3 and then Cyberpunk 2077, where Cyberpunk had like sex scenes, full on nudity. Boulder Skates 3 has sex scenes, full on nudity. The Last of Us 2, full on nudity, full on sex scenes. So like these 3 games were rated mature. Why? Because there was sex scenes in it, full on nudity, partial nudity, suggestive themes, violence, gore, all that stuff. And like those games weren't like tampered with or censored in any form or way. Why? Because in Boulder Skates 3, what can you do? You can make a character that's a transgender. Cyberpunk 2077. Once again, what can you do? You can make a character that's not specifically gender specific. You can make that character gender neutral. Same thing with Boulder Skates 3. And then while this character just is, a body of a man with a woman's face. So like this is what I mean about this woke ideology. And they'll push like transgenderism, they'll push gayness, they'll push obesity, and then they'll push like gender neutral characters, and then when they're getting on full on sex scenes and full on nudity scenes, they're applauding it, they'll support it, they'll allow it in a video game. But when there's a gender specific character such as Eve that has a bit of cleavage showing, all of a sudden she needs to get censored to high hell. So like it's absolutely hypocritical and it's bullshit. And like, why, if you're gonna rate a game rated mature and have like Cyberpunk, where you can make a gender neutral character be able to have full sex scenes and full nude scenes, same with the Boulder Skates 3, and then have The Last of Us 2 with this character that literally has the woman's face with the man's body, have full on nudity and sex scenes. Like, how is this somehow acceptable and appropriate? But yet, when it gets the rated M mature, the rated M ESRB rating, but yet, in characters like Eve from Stellar Blade can't have any cleavage exposed. Like, that's absolutely hypocritical.
And this person shows off different photos from different games that have had zero censorship in their content. They have not removed these things. And some of this stuff is really lewd and disgusting, quite frankly, especially The Last of Us 2. Some of that content has things that you really should not see, but they don't censor that stuff. They show it full frontal nudity and all. Because the fact of the matter is that a lot of these companies are trying to push DEI agenda stuff into their games, which includes, but it's not limited to, removing content post-patch, post-release. They've done this before, they are doing it again. And so I don't doubt that that agenda is somehow at play here, and that Shift Up is trying not to make Sony look bad, while internally discussing it. Of course, they already have admitted that they are aware gamers are not going to be happy with this decision. But people have started to speak out about this. If you see from this post...
So yeah, I've already signed this from Grum's, Free Stellar Blade. I've signed the petition. So yeah, I hope more people sign the petition. I think more people need to sign it. I think, and if you're, a straight male gamer that wants to have, sex appeal and fan service for, characters that are gender specific, and that actually have, the appearance and the body of a woman and the face of a woman, and actually has more than a B cup size breast, and you want these female characters to have sex appeal fan service, I think we need to really speak up against this. Because like I said just earlier on this video, they were showing The Last of Us 2, they were showing us Boulder Skates 3 and Cyberpunk 2077. And like all those games are fine because like it allows the agenda to be pushed, the woke agenda. And what I mean by the woke agenda is like acceptance of transgenders, obesity, and gay individuals. So it kind of like, the thing with those 4 games or those 3 games is it kind of pushes the woke narrative. And because those games push the woke narrative, those games are perfectly acceptable to have the content that should be linked in within a game that has like that EBRS rating of mature, and have that content in it, and like that content is acceptable, and with those 3 games in a game that has that rating of mature. Why? Because it's pushing the woke narrative. Why is it pushing the woke narrative? Because all these games have a way where, and there can be a representation of a transgender. That's why, these games are perfectly acceptable. And it's because they're pushing the narrative of transgenders, and why, you can have full-on nudity and sex scenes with, in Cyberpunk 2077, Baldur's Gate 3, and The Last of Us 2. But you can't have any cleavage being exposed with characters from Stellar Blade, like Eve, because she's specifically gender specific, and she's a female, and she's not gender neutral. That is walking around as a transgender. So with Eve, she can't really push the narrative of that woke feminists are trying to push with this woke ideology. About an acceptance of transgenders, and of obesity, and of gayness. So yeah, this is pretty much why I like characters that are like that are designed like Eve to be gender specific are constantly getting censored, while you have games like Baldur's Gate, Last of Us 2, and Cyberpunk 2077 that's never getting censored, because these games you can make it transgender, and these games allow in the woke narrative to be pushed of acceptance of in transgenders, of obesity and gayness. So like this is why those games are never going to get censored. But you're going to get a Eve that basically just has sex appeal and fan service getting censored just because and she's not gender neutral, and she's gender specific, and she's not capable of pushing the woke narrative because she's specifically a legitimate female video game character that's not gender neutral. So that's why she's getting nerfed and censored, but everybody, all these 3 other games aren't.
From Grums, the 8-step plan to free Stellar Blade. It's a hashtag that has made Stellar Blade go trending over the last 24 hours. This movement is actually picking up speed. Grums says, show them gamers win, restore the original game to what was promised. This is a thread. So step 1, he reached out to Kim Hyung-tae, who's the creator of Stellar Blade. It turns out that the creator is actually following Grums, which gave him an opportunity to say something to the creator in a private DM. He said, so far, the game looks phenomenal from streams. I am looking forward to my pre-order to arrive today. As you know, your game is more than a game. It is a cultural beacon. In a time of great censorship and anti-gamer sentiment, your game gives gamers great hope. It is why now more than ever it is important that you know you have their support. Regarding the changes from the trailer and costumes, please change it back. You have many fans who want Stellar Blade to be even more successful. I believe that changing things back to what was originally shown sends a strong message and will increase the success even more. And I think that that's a really reasonable thing to say to the creator. You're not insulting him, you're just trying to express to him that gamers care about your game and they want what was originally created for them in the first.
Okay, sorry, I was getting a little emotional there. I was about to cry for a second. I'm gonna kind of keep my emotions all together. I don't want to I don't want to start crying. I don't want to start yelling. I don't want to start screaming or anything like that. I want to stay composed. I'm not gonna lie though. For a minute, I was literally about to cry because this game means a lot to me. I was really hopeful to finally get a game out of the 10 years that I've had to constantly deal with censorship being thrust on me, simply because there's actually a very attractive and gorgeous female character that's gender specific, and that how that gender specific female video game character, it constantly has been censored over and over and over again, more drastically throughout the 10 years, with more censorship, more clothing, with more fabric covering up the female video game character from neck to toe in clothing, and covering up the cleavage, covering up the breasts, reducing the breast size, and and doing everything that the West can to make any female video game character gender neutral, so they can be portrayed as a transgender. And I was about to cry there for a second because this is why this game means a lot to me. It's finally a game where it's a female character. It's not a character that has had their breast size reduced to an A or B cup and has had her hourglass figure and shape and curvature and her proportions heavily reduced and covered up from neck to toes in clothing. And to make this Eve appear, in gender neutral. This is why this game means a lot to me. It's finally a game that I can actually appreciate for my how can I say this? For my sexual preference. And I'm not saying sexual preferences. I'm specifically only looking at Eve in a sexual way. But more so that I just appreciate that, and this is finally a female character that's gender specific. And that's not being gender neutral, so she can be pushed a narrative for woke feminists of transgenderism, transgenderism, of and having Eve be able to push that narrative for and be a beacon for woke ideology of making her in gender neutral and transgender. She's finally a female character that has in the female body, and that absolutely looks stunning and beautiful. And it's just annoying because, like, if it was up to woke feminists, especially Democrats and left-wing woke feminists, they would do anything they can to make Eve, like I said, gender neutral, so they can actually use her as a beacon to push the woke narrative. And it's just nice to finally, it's just finally nice to get a video game character that's not being censored to the point where and they're gender neutral, so they can push that woke narrative of transgenderism. And that's why I was about to cry, because we finally have in some kind of we actually have some legitimate representation of a female video game character. And like I was about to cry because like this was the one game that gave me hope that we can kind of just go beyond that, where we can also have that fan service and sex appeal, besides having an actual female video game character being like honestly truthfully represented in a video game. And like is one step of a victory that we've got achieved so far. I'm glad that we've achieved this minor victory, but in the end it's still a minor victory, because and we also, gamers also deserve and to have that content specifically with Eve when the game's rated mature. And it's not fair that and that kind of content is stripped away from Eve just because she's a female video game character that's gender specific, and that's not gender neutral. And I know I was yelling and screaming and swearing in a lot of my videos about the censorship, because like I said, Stellar Blade was the one game that gave me a lot of hope and encouragement that and we could finally have games that represent female characters that aren't being censored to be gender neutral to push the woke narrative. And that with this one victory of actually having a female video game character representation in the video game for a change that we haven't had in 10 years, that we could also get in sex appeal and fan service. And I think and I was just discouraged because, like I said, and Shift Up promised that that it wasn't going to be censored, and the fact that they rated this game rated mature, and I was expecting, like I said, full nudity, or at least or how can I say this? Sorry, I'm getting tongue twisted. I'm trying to think of how I can say this. Or at the very least, that's what I wanted to say. Or at the very least, partial nudity. And I think if we didn't get full nudity, we should have at the very least got partial nudity for fan service and sex appeal. And we didn't get that, especially when the game was rated mature. So I'm very upset about that, and rightfully so, especially since that was promised to us, that the game wasn't going to be censored, and the fact that the game is rated mature. So where's the blood, and where's the nudity, where's the partial nudity, where's the suggested themes? Like, I'm not seeing any of that when I play the game, and it feels like it's all been stripped away. Why? Because Eve is specifically because Eve is a female video game character that is not gender neutral, but is gender specific. And because Eve is a character that cannot push the woke narrative, and that's why all of a sudden she deserves to get censored and not have sex appeal and fan service and not have full nudity or partial nudity in her video game with her outfits and costumes, and why all of a sudden, because she's not gender neutral and that she's specifically a female video game character, and her outfits need to be censored. And like I said, it's a small victory. Yes, we finally got a representation of a female video game character, but it's the fact like also now she's being censored. And I think we were at this point right now, like Rams was saying, this game was going to be a beacon of hope, and it was a beacon of hope. People were very optimistic. People were very hopeful that and this was going to be the one game to break the censorship, to punch through that censorship, and to completely destroy the bias of it and the hypocrisy of it, and completely, derail it. Now it didn't derail it. It didn't destroy it. It didn't punch a hole right through it. But and it is a step. It's a step in the right direction. The censorship is obviously the wrong direction to go. And I think, like Rum said, and if we speak up respectfully, and we show him how much this game means to gamers, and how hopeful that this game could be, that beacon of hope, to kind of punch through the hypocrisy of the woke narrative, we can finally get that fan service and sex appeal back that we haven't gotten in such a long time. And when I say for such a long time, 10 years. Of not having any really good representation of female video game characters, as well as I'm dealing with the censorship.
Place. And he creates a step 2. He follows me as I tweet about what we're going to do. You can leave replies and he will likely see how many there are and read them. He says he's search banned on Twitter as well. An NSFW tag artist gets, even though I don't post NSFW. So
Yeah, and see, apparently I've also heard there was like an attack on Grum's life, and somebody actually posted that they would pay somebody like a lot of money to actually go and assassinate Grums. And then like for him just probably making a petition and trying to get change of the game to be uncensored, I wouldn't be surprised if they completely ban him from X or something like that, because you're allowed to push a narrative on a lot of these chat engines, such as X, which thank God Elon Musk is kind of banning that, and trying to make sure that there's as much free speech as possible. I know Elon Musk, and he's more of a leftist, more center left. I'm kind of more center right. But the fact that he appreciates what I appreciate, such as freedom of expression and free speech and the free market, I respect Elon Musk quite a bit. Okay, come on, man. Keep your composure. 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 Yeah, so like I was saying, I respect Elon Musk quite a bit for that reason. I'm somebody I always believe strongly, and I'm very passionate, and I would die on a hill for freedom of expression, free speech, and the free market. And I'm very happy that we have people like Elon Musk, even though and I don't really agree a lot with the left philosophies and political opinions. I at least respect Elon Musk for the fact that he actually and is trying to do what he can to make sure that their free speech remains on Twitter or on X when he took control of it or ownership of it. So yeah. Apparently, though, it seems like Grums has been banned. I don't know specifically the reasons why he's been banned. I think that's absolutely retarded. I don't think Grums has ever said anything deserving to be banned. And he's just trying to get support from other individuals and get support for the Stellar Blade to be uncensored. I don't think trying to get support for Stellar Blade to get uncensored through a partition is really anything to be served to be banned for. So, like I said, I also signed that petition, and I hope more people sign as well, because I really think that we need to have a game to be that beacon of hope to show that and gamers don't want censorship, and censorship shouldn't be applied to a video game that has a gender-specific female video game character, and because this character is gender-specific, that this character doesn't deserve to be censored, period. And for Eve to be censored because she's specifically a female video game character that's gender-specific is the only reason why she's being censored, and it's a very just and unfair reason why she's being censored, especially when you're giving the game the rated M for mature. When you have, like I said, Baldur's Gate 3, Last of Us 2, and Cyberpunk 2077. So, like I said, though, it's because Eve is gender specific. She's a female video game character that can't push the woke narrative and be a representation of woke narrative because she's not gender neutral and she's gender specific. So that's why she gets to get censored. But yet, why and we don't see any censorship with games like Roller Skates 3, The Last of Us 2, and Cyberpunk 2077, because you can make transgender characters, and it allows those games to kind of push the woke narrative and woke ideology.
Somebody out there is not wanting Grums to be seen, and I actually have proof of this, because if I type in his name right there in the top, I will type it, Grummz. Grums. Okay, I'm usually able to find this guy. He and I follow each other, so he usually pops up right there in the top right-hand corner. For some reason, he's not, and I think that that should be made note of. But he also has a condensed version of the steps if you don't want to read all of that crazy stuff, and I don't intend to go through all of.
So yeah, so I think it was him just making the steps on how to get change, and it wasn't anything that was threatening people like Grums got threats on his life. But Grums said it wasn't any threats. It was just pretty much, these are the steps that you can take to make change in a very respectful way. And if you follow these steps, you can hopefully possibly see change if by following these steps, these procedures. And it wasn't, that's all it was. It wasn't him like going out tweeting on Twitter, we needed to go and attack somebody and calling for violence. He wasn't doing anything like that. It was just, these are steps you can take to, and that you can take to hopefully cause change in a respectful way. And it was just basically, sign a petition, and canceling your PlayStation Plus account. Sign the petition, canceling your PlayStation Plus account, and then just giving like Sony a box of letters of signed autographs of a petition. So it was nothing, like I said, Grums calling out for violence towards anybody. It was just procedures and steps that you can take to kind of get change to the right people. Give information to the right people for them to change things that and you're passionate about as an individual, and that's all it was. So for him to all of a sudden not be able to show up like that, like DreadRoborts was saying, is pretty suspicious, and I agree with him. That's quite suspicious that all of a sudden you can't find Grums if you search him up under the search bar. It's very suspicious indeed.
Of it, though I do plan to show the petition page. Now from this condensed tweet right here, the plan to get Stellar Blade censorship removed, condensed version of pinned tweet, contact Shift Up offices, send physical mail as that carries more weight in Asia. And he puts the address right here. It's actually located in Seoul. If you see it right there behind me, 14F Apro Square. Here's the address. You can type it in right here if you want to send a letter to them and just express that you want them to make the changes to the game. You can also email them at cs@shiftup.co.kr. And a bunch of haters are just like, stop, why are you harassing them? Why are you sending them emails and letters? Like, dude, they have an email and an address that is publicly listed so that you can contact them for these types of reasons. These people are so childish, a bunch of babies. And he also goes on to say, cancel your PSN and tag PlayStation. Some people are mad at him for saying this, but I do believe that he is just saying to cancel PSN to send a message, not.
Yeah, I think that's what he meant by that. I don't think Grums meant like to completely cancel. Like, I think he did meant for you. I think he meant for you to cancel your PlayStation Plus account, but like not as a permanent solution. I think it was more just a temporary solution, just to send a message to Sony that you're definitely not pleased with the censorship from them. And I think that's all it was and just a temporary solution that and a suggestion too. So let's keep in mind that this is a suggestion from Grums. He's not pointing the gun at anybody and telling anybody that they have to cancel their PlayStation Plus account. He's just saying, as a temporary solution, I suggest that this is something you can do to get change for Stellar Blade. That's all it is. Also, like, if somebody's leaving an email for you to get in contact with them, the whole purpose of leaving an email is so you can contact them. It's not harassing them. This is information that Shift Up has completely disclosed themselves. and Grumps is just showing you what Shift Up himself disclosed.
To permanently disrupt the PSN accounts chain and stop people from having PSN. He's just saying to send a message. Again, people are overreacting to the things that he's saying, and he says to sign the petition. Tag everything. And I have the petition right here. Free Stellar Blade. Check this.
Yeah, like I said, I've already signed the petition, so I hope more people see this. And, and if you're not, what was it? I know somebody used, the left-wing woke feminist love using this word to describe gamers like myself and other gamers that want attractive and gorgeous female video game characters in video games that have fan service and sex appeal. A groomer, I don't know how, I think it's groomer or something like that. I honestly don't even know what the definition of groomer or groomer is. I think it's just basically somebody that's, I don't know what the definition is, but I'm just going to guess. A guy that's basically gets off sexually on video game characters. Or, I think that's personally what it is. And you know what? If it's something that, and it's visually pleasing to you, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Everybody, has something they're attracted to. And if there's something that's representing what you're attracted to, you're going to, have some, lust for that character what you're seeing. If, something that you're attracted to is being accurately portrayed and represented in whatever it is. So I don't think it's fair to call somebody a groomer or groomer if I got the definition right. Because I think if anybody's attracted to something and something is a representation of what they're attracted to, and they're going to, get off on it. Maybe they are not going to whip out and start doing things to themselves. But, and visually, and it's going to be pleasing to them. And there's nothing wrong with something being visually pleasing to you when there's a representation of what, and you're attracted to. So, whether it's sexual or not. So I don't think that really is fair to call a male gamer a groomer or a gromer or whatever that is just because they see an attractive female character when they just want that female character to have fan service and sex appeal. So I did sign this petition. Please sign it. We really need to get change. We can't let Sony keep getting away with this. And like I said, it's very hypocritical. Like, you have Eve, that's a female video game character, and because she's specifically gendered Pacific, and she's not gender neutral, and she's legitimately a female video game character that you can't make as a gender neutral character, and that's why she's getting censored. But because you can make a character in Baldur's Gate 3 or in the Cyberpunk 2077 gender neutral, and you have Abby, which is a transgender from Last of Us 2, all of a sudden full-on nude scenes and full-on sex scenes is perfectly acceptable and appropriate for those games. But yet, because Eve is, in a female video game character, and she's somebody that can't be represented as a gender-neutral character, that's why all of a sudden, and these woke feminists pushing this woke ideology is going out of their way to censor specifically Eve and any character like Eve because she's not gender neutral and she's gender specific, and the Western wants to push acceptance of transgenders, and obesity and gayness with their characters, and because they can't do that with Eve, it's if they can't exclude this character like Eve or any characters like Eve, the next thing they go to is censoring this character. So please, let's make change. Sign this petition. Let's let our voices be heard. Let gamers' voices be heard. That we're not gonna conform, and we're not gonna comply to having our rights taken away from us as individuals, as Canadians, as Americans. That we're not gonna have those rights taken away from us just so we can make room for the acceptance of transgenders. Let's sign this petition. Let's get real women back in our games. Let's get real women back in our games with fan service and sex appeal. Instead of having these female characters that appear generic and neutral and average and gender neutral. We don't want gender neutral characters anymore. We don't want average looking female characters or gender neutral characters. We want actual legitimate female video game characters. Let's make change. Let's make this happen. Please sign this petition.
this thing out. I mean, last night when I first saw this, it was at maybe like 1,000 signatures, but now it is approaching 25,000. It's currently at 19,102 people who have signed it. They believe in this thing that Grumps is doing, and they want this game to succeed with the original version that was intended for audiences when they advertised it to them on YouTube. So this is what Grumps says in his Free Stellar Blade petition. It says, Stellar Blade is a phenomenal new game that just launched on PlayStation 5 worldwide, but it has a problem. The content has been censored from the original trailer version posted by Sony. We as gamers want this content back. We relied on it, we made the game the #1 pre-order worldwide because of it, and this is the true game we want. Stellar Blade is more than a game. It has become a cultural beacon for freedom of expression in a time where game publishers like Sony are censoring games more than ever. Stellar Blade was a breath of fresh air, and gamers rallied behind it because it meant things were changing, getting better, and the voice of creative freedom was ringing loud and clear. But for reasons unknown, the game was censored. Changes were made. What we received after our good...
Okay, I'm gonna already tell you the reasons why it was censored, and I already did a little earlier ago. One, because Eve is a character that's legitimately a character that's being represented specifically as a female video game character and as a character that's gender specific. Because Eve is a gender specific character that's being represented as a specifically a female video game character. Woke feminists that are pushing woke ideology can't use her as their beacon to push the narrative, because Eve is actually a gender-specific character that is legitimately a female video game character. That's why these woke journalists are treating Eve the way they are, because Eve is a character that they can't use as a beacon to push the woke narrative from woke feminist ideology. That's why. There's no other reason for why this is happening to specifically characters like Eve for the last 10 years. It's the only reason why this is happening. So there's a clear reason why. There's not that it's unclear whatsoever. I've been playing games for more than 20 years of my life. I specifically know what's going on. I've seen like this push of woke ideology and the push of transgender acceptance. You look at how transgenders have infiltrated, in female sports, female washrooms. The West has been high-bent on hell of forcing and pushing people to conform and accepting of wokeness and accepting of transgenderism. And that's what it's about. And because Eve is a gender-specific character, not a gender-neutral character, that is specifically a female video game character, because she can't be portrayed as a gender-neutral character and represented as a trans character or a down sexualized character. That's why she's getting censored. And that's why, when she shows a little bit of cleavage, because she does have breasts and she's not a flat-chested character, that's why she's getting covering up, because she's legitimately a female video game character that can't be represented can't be represented in any other way but a female character. That's why she's getting censored. Because, and that's why, like I said, Cyberpunk 2077, Borderlands 3, not Borderlands 3, Baldur's Gate 3, and why The Last of Us 2, why they're perfectly fine having full-on sex scenes and full-on nudity. Because those characters are able to push the woke narrative, because you can have transgender representation in those games if you wanted to, and which you can't with Eve from Stellar Blade. And that's why she's getting censored, but yet nothing else is, because, like I said, woke feminists that are pushing woke ideology can't use Eve as a beacon to push their woke narrative. That's why she's getting censored.
Faith purchase was not the same as advertised. We believe in the game, we believe in Shift Up, and we are asking to get the game we believed in. Revert the censorship changes, patch the game, and you will find that even more gamers will join you and support you. All gamers can help by signing this petition. It will be printed in Korea and delivered in Korea to Shift Up offices, and physically printed and delivered to Sony PlayStation North America offices. Spread this petition on social media with the Free Stellar Blade hashtag. And so this petition is written in several different languages, and it is being shared in several different languages as well. That is an effort by Grums and others who have contributed to his movement. And it's not surprising that people believe in this movement, because this is not the first time that he has done something like this and where it has seen success. As you can see from something he referenced earlier in his work life, he's quoting people who say this plan won't work, we should just cancel and go home. And he says, sorry, you're wrong, I've used it before and I've won. I led the change to bring WoW Classic back. I brought the Nostalrius petition to Blizzard and we got it back. That was a private server for World of Warcraft that they got rid of because people were having way too much fun with it and giving it more attention than retail World of Warcraft. And he says, we can change it here too. Shift Up would love to have ammo to bring to Sony. We're going to give it to them. Keep your copies of Stellar Blade. Buy it physical so you have the original outfits. We're going to change it back. And he references a PC Gamer article from way back in the day, back in April 2016. Nostalrius petition passes 200,000 signatures. Mark Kern to deliver it. The petition to resurrect the private server Nostalrius following Blizzard's cease and desist has surpassed 200k signatures. This was the threshold at which former World of Warcraft team lead Mark Kern pledged to deliver it to Blizzard president Mike Morhaime personally. He's more than making good on that offer. That's actually a petition that I signed way back in the day because I used to play on that World of Warcraft private server. And then I went to play World of Warcraft Classic years later. That was quite an interesting time. But this is proof that Mark Kern can deliver on this kind of movement if people support the petition to move forward with.
All right, yes, please support the petition. Like I said, we need. Stellar Blade was the one game that I had hope, that I had all my faith in, and it got shattered and ruined, and I've lost $210 for a game that I was expecting to get that I didn't get. Especially when the game was rated, an M for mature. And with that kind of rating, usually any gamer would have been expecting, full nudity, partial nudity, gut and gore, violence. Like, I'm playing Mortal Kombat 1, and Mortal Kombat 1 has actually more revealing skins, has more blood and gore than Stellar Blade does. Yet Stellar Blade, how does this make sense? Stellar Blade is rated M for mature, yet Mortal Kombat 1 has more partial nudity and has more blood and gore than Stellar Blade. Please tell me, how does that make sense for Stellar Blade to have an M rating when Mortal Kombat 1 has way more of that stuff than Stellar Blade? It makes no sense. And when you have other games that are rated mature that have full-on nude scenes and sex scenes, alright, like The Last of Us 2, Baldur's Gate 3, and Cyberpunk 2077, and like I said, Mortal Kombat 1 has way more partial nudity and has way more gore and blood, but yet, and that's rated mature as well. And you got those four games rated mature that have, partial nudity or full, you got those 4 games that are rated mature that have full nudity, partial nudity, gut and gore, violence, and suggestive themes. Like, how does that make any sense? How is that Mortal Kombat, Baldur's Gate 3, what was it? Not Mass Effect. Mortal Kombat 1, Baldur's Gate 3, The Last of Us 2, and Cyberpunk 2077. You have those 4 games that are rated mature that have, full nudity, partial nudity, intense blood and gore, and suggestive themes. You have those 4 games that are rated mature, but yet Stellar Blade is rated mature and has and it lacks all that stuff. Like I said, Stellar Blade does not deserve the M rating. It deserves the teen rating, because when you have those 4 other games that I mentioned that have like full nudity, partial nudity, full sex scenes, violence, gore, and all that stuff in it, yet Stellar Blade has the same rating but has none of that, that makes absolutely no sense. And even though, like, somebody that doesn't really know what's going on in the gaming industry, like I said, I've been playing games for 20 years, I absolutely know what it's about. I've seen, like, being Canadian, I've seen the push of acceptance of transgenderism, and how, like, they're using all this, everything they can to get people to conform into acceptance of transgenderism, and people that are transcending to a different sex. So I definitely know that, like, what's going on. I'm not unaware, and I'm not brain dead, and I do have common sense. I do have, and I'm able to acknowledge things. Whether it's things that I've seen, whether it's things that I've heard, or things that I've read, I know, and I do have common sense, and I can distinguish quite a bit through that common sense. My speaking might not seem like I'm very intellectual, how I speak, but don't let how I speak fool you. I'm a very intellectual person. And because I do have common sense and I can differentiate between things.
Keeping the physical copy as it is supposed to be without the day one patch. It's clear that this kind of thing can work, but we also have more proof that this can work, and it's not just grums who can do things like this, it's everyday people like you that can make this sort of thing work. As he says in this post, gamer voices make a difference. Tomb Raider is restoring the posters in the remasters, so there was a censorship effort in a patch that came from Asper for the remasters of Tomb Raiders 1, 2, and 3, in which they removed posters that were above Lara Croft's locker, basically showing her in a swimsuit or whatever, and they either blurred those out or they completely removed them. But guess what?
Yeah, what happened there is that actually did happen. They completely removed the pinup posters in one of the remakes, or not remakes, but remasters. I believe it was the third remaster of Tomb Raider, and it was basically Lara Croft in a locker room, and on above the lockers on the wall there was actually two pinup posters of Lara Croft, and those posters weren't really provocative, and she wasn't wearing any clothes, but like nothing was also really being revealed when it came to any of her private areas. So and like any of Lara Croft's private areas weren't being fully exposed, and even though she was nude, and there was just simply nothing too provocative. But it was two pinup posters against the wall in a locker room. And apparently those got completely excluded and removed from the video game because of censorship. Eventually, and these were the remasters. So I believe it was like the third one. It might have been the second one or first one too, but it was definitely the Tomb Raider remasters. And I think there was enough of an outrage about it that they eventually brought those pinup posters against the wall above the lockers. They brought that back and they uncensored it. So yeah, change is possible. I think we just need to make sure that our voices are heard, and the way we do that is by making sure that there's enough voices that are speaking out against it. And then I think at that point change is possible. So I definitely believe Grums is on the right track. I think people kind of like making sure that they're letting their voice be heard, and they're not allowing this woke ideology to silence them. And that's what they're going to want. They're going to want woke ideology to silence you. These woke individuals that are pushing this woke feminist ideology, they're going to want to silence you. And as you can see, when they can't silence you, their next step is to turn it to go to insults. And like what I mean by insults is like calling you, like I said, a groomer, whatever that word is, or you calling you a sexist, or calling you an incel, and just bashing who you are as an individual and your characteristics that kind of make you who you are as an individual. Trying to make you seem like you're the scum of the earth and like you're an absolutely horrible person when in fact you're not. And anybody having a certain preference doesn't make somebody a bad person. And it's how you treat yourself, but it's also how you treat others. And like I said, I've always been one, and treat others how you want to be treated. And as long as and you're respectful towards me, I'll definitely be respectful towards you, and I'll definitely be respectful towards you and initiate that respect towards you. But I expect you to be respectful towards me as well. And yeah, I think, somebody having a certain preference doesn't make anybody a bad person. And I don't think, but like I said, because these woke feminists want to push this ideology, their results and their efforts are basically, and what they kind of turn to when they don't get their way is, on insults. So, yeah. I guess that's what I have to say. They turn to insults when they don't get their way. Say that can probably be the same for anybody, but the thing is, though, like when they do it, they're doing it to specifically to, how can I say this, bash your character, your personality, and like what makes you who you are, personality wise, based off of like your preferences. Basically, they just really try and diminish who you are as a good person, and and woke feminists will always try and do that when they can't silence you.
Asper came out and said, we're going to revert it back to normal. From Asper Daniel, thank you to the Tomb Raider community for your continued feedback and support for Tomb Raiders 1 through 3 remastered starring Lara Croft. In the recently released patch 2, we made several texture and graphical updates to the HD version. As part of these updates, the posters in Sleeping with the Fishes from the Lost Artifact were inadvertently removed in the HD version of the game. Inadvertently, I have no idea what that means, but they do go on to say this has been resolved and these textures will be restored in patch 3. So people making Lara Croft go trending, people on social media talking about it, gamers expressing their frustration with it and talking to Asper, trying to get their voices heard. It worked, and Asper is now backing down from the changes that they made and reverting it back to normal. This is why a lot of people believe in Mark Kern's movement for this hashtag Free Stellar Blade petition, because they think that this thing can actually work, and they have seen proof of gamer pushback actually having an effect in the gaming industry. And already gamers are responding to this movement. It says right here, guess what the only people gaslighting me have in common? Go on, guess. PlayStation, I'll cover you and your Korean studio sabotage permanently. I wouldn't be surprised if they make it worse. These are people who are canceling their PSN subscriptions. Censorship is bad. Cancel PlayStation Plus.
There we go.
Replying to Grums, canceling his PSN subscription. Doing my part. We need Stellar Blade uncensored. These are not people who are saying, I'm never going to play PSN again, I'm done with Sony. These are people who are saying, uncensor Stellar Blade. Do not quit PSN forever. Do not quit Stellar Blade. Just cancel PSN to send a message in solidarity for...
Yeah, I'm going to apologize. I don't think anybody's going to see my videos, but yeah, I'm going to apologize for my anger and frustration. I've been playing games for 20 years, so when I was doing my playthrough of Stellar Blade Part 1 and Part 2, I was kind of on a tangent. I was swearing and yelling and screaming and just venting my frustration and anger. I definitely want to apologize for what I've said, especially to the people at Shift Up. Not really Sony. I really think Sony is a bunch of scumbags, but definitely to Shift Up. I don't, like I said, I don't think that they're at fault at this. I think they were pressured into that being the final version that they wanted to release. I think the fault is Sony, and they held all the cards, and they really didn't want to budge on certain things. So I think, and like I said, Shift Up had to just be comfortable with that, and being their final product that they wanted to release. And I think most of the blame does go to Sony. So I want to apologize to Shift Up for insulting them and calling them all those things. I was just really mad because, like I said, I was very passionate about Stellar Blade finally being a game that has no censorship in it, and having an attractive female video game character that's gender specific, that has, a character, and that's specifically a female character that can't be used as a beacon for transgenderism, for woke feminist ideology to push their narrative. This was a character that was gender specific, that was the epitome of, and female beauty, and that couldn't be construed or altered to be a transgender or gender neutral to push the woke narrative. And I really had hope, had that gave me a lot of hope and faith in Shift Up as a company, and I just honestly felt completely betrayed by them when they censored the game and the costumes from Stellar Blade. I definitely apologize for calling them spineless pieces of shit with no balls and bending the knee, and they're a bunch of bitches, saying that stuff. And I definitely do apologize, specifically to the staff at Shift Up, as well as the director, and everybody who made Stellar Blade from Shift Up. I don't apologize to Sony. I'm always going to think Sony are a bunch of those things. Nothing's going to ever change my opinion about Sony. I'm always going to think they're scum and pieces of shit that just want to censor everything to push a narrative. So I'm not apologizing to Sony, but I do definitely apologize to Shift Up. I'm going to keep playing Stellar Blade even though I'm very angry. I think I just need to take a break for like a couple of days from doing any uploads, especially of Shift Up. Especially of Stellar Blade, because I'm somebody that literally went to go and buy 2 copies because that's how passionate I was. I normally don't always go and get the digital and physical copies so close together. I usually try and get the physical copy and the digital copy more spread apart, because like I said, it costs me literally $105 Canadian every time I buy either the digital or the physical copy. So I usually try and spread that apart a bit because of how expensive it is. But because of how much faith I had in Stellar Blade and the company Shift Up, I definitely bought those two games more closer together, the physical and the digital copy. And because of how much faith and trust I had in Shift Up, and when I seen any information about Eve's cautions being censored, that just completely demoralized me and destroyed my faith and hope in Shift Up. I realize now that even though this is the final version that they possibly did want to intend to be released, I don't think it was something that they really wanted at the end, and they had to get comfortable with accepting that that was the final version that they wanted. And because there was the pressure from Sony, and just because, you know, Shift Up spent a lot of money on their game, and I think they wanted to get it out and also at least somewhat be happy and satisfied with the product that they had before shipping it out worldwide. And I think most of that pressure of altering and changing aspects of Eve's outfits were from Sony. So I'm going to still say fuck you, Sony, and I apologize to Stellar Blade, and I apologize to Shift Up. But yeah, I think I also said don't buy the game, boycott it. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry about that, because I thought that was the justified thing to do at that time. But I do agree. I think Shift Up does need all the support, because if we don't give them all the support we can, they're not going to have the capabilities of altering what has been changed. And for that reason, I think Shift Up definitely needs as much support as possible. So I think, you know, I'm sure giving them support, showing them what we want in the game, but also being respectful and showing that we have faith and trust in Stellar Blade and giving them that support, I think is what we need to do. And I agree with DreadRoborts and Grums. Definitely, I think it's the best approach. And I think if you want to be mad at anybody, it should definitely be Sony and not as much as Shift Up, even though I do feel like they're somewhat accountable, but I think they were pressured. Yeah, so don't do what I said in my first part of the live stream of Stellar Blade. What I said in my live stream of Stellar Blade 1 and 2, part 1 and 2, I was very angry and I was very frustrated, and I was very emotionally distraught because, you know, and I got a game I wasn't expecting, realizing that there was censorship when I was kind of led to the impression that there was going to be no censorship. But like, yeah, don't do what I said. Support the game. Support Shift Up. Support you know, and Stellar Blade. Showing, but express, you know, and what you're not satisfied about and what you're angry about, and, you know, and support them so, you know, and they can possibly bring change to the game and not censor their game.
For the sake of this game being uncensored, as people intended for it to be when they purchased it. There are more posts who say this. Just canceled my PSN subscription to my support for free Stellar Blade. And no, it's not about a few inches of fabric, it's about ethics. Stellar Blade initially released uncensored, but after the first patch, some outfits were censored. And Mark Kern does say something about this. This isn't about a few inches of fabric. It's about the double standard in gaming, where Western studios get a pass on full frontal nudity, bare sex, and constantly shoving DEI in our faces, while Korean and Japanese games get the censorship boot. But of course, he already expressed this in his petition. However, people on the other side are giving him so much garbage for this, and we're going to go over a couple of those. But he first acknowledged, it's true, tons of people are canceling their PSN subscriptions due to the Stellar Blade censorship. This movement is picking up traction, people. It's getting noticed. Unfortunately, it's getting noticed by all the wrong people. This is from Yogensha. Man, all the disingenuous journo types coming out of the woodwork to dunk on Grums for starting the Stellar Blade call to action. Never have I seen such a coordinated effort from gaming to undermine a single individual over a video game wanting the promised product. And as you can see, these are people that I have reported on in the past, including the former Riot Games artist. I remember making a video about this guy. He said some pretty awful things, but he goes on to say even worse things. Michael is keeping it together, says, "Oh my G, please. please, I can't laugh anymore. My sides, my effing sides. Does this guy have kids, a family? Is there anything that feeds his soul in any way? I don't know, man. I am so fascinated by this level of sadness in a person, and the comedy slurry keeps flowing. You guys heard what Mark said. All this guy is doing is pushing for this game to be uncensored. People apparently have a problem with this game being uncensored. They're like, no, man, let Sony just censor a couple of things. Let us have the win that we can have while we can have it, okay? You don't just stand and let Sony censor whatever they want, because if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. They will censor even more in the future, in post patches. We already bought this game, but that doesn't mean that they won't go in and change it without you even knowing about it, and they will. Other gaming...
Oh yeah, that's already happened. There's a couple of games that I can't remember off the top of my mind, but there have been games that have been changed. Actually, there's one game that was showing up on one of the YouTubes that I was watching, Final Fantasy VII. One of not the remakes, but one of the older Final Fantasy VIIs. What they did with Rebirth, with the censorship of the flashback with Tifa, they actually went back to one of the older games that had that same flashback and censored Tifa again in the older game with her in the flashback, putting that black top underneath her white cowboy top. So like perfect. That's a perfect example right there. If they're already willing to do it with that game, who's to say that when you own Stellar Blade or any other game that they're not going to go in the future like DreadRoborts is saying that they're going to alter and censor it. Like the fact that your system is constantly hooked up to the internet and it can use the internet to access content in your video game whenever they want to alter or change things. They can easily alter and change things in the future without you knowing about it before you know about it by the time you play the game. So yeah, it's definitely a possibility.
Companies have done just that. But he's quoting all of these things. He's quoting the fact that people are paying attention to this. He's making fun of gamers. He's saying that you gamers who are upset about Stellar Blade being censored, you're all a bunch of idiots. He's laughing so hard at you. He's laughing at you, gamers, customers. And guess what? It gets even worse. GameSpot editor and other journalists calling the Free Stellar Blade petition unhinged. We know what makes them cheer, the double standard.
It's not unhinged. What's unhinged is how you actually are hypocrites. That's the unhinged part. The fact like you want to preach about diversity, inclusion, and representation when it's specifically your ideal form of representation, that being a transgender or a gay individual or a person that's obese, is appropriate content for representation for you, and how you will always trying to make sure there's ways to have that included in the video games, but then you'll purposely go out of your way to try and exclude characters like Eve because they are gender specific, because they cannot push your woke narrative, because they are not characters like Eve are not gender neutral, and because characters like Eve that are not gender neutral and are actually a female video game character, because you can't portray them as being a gender neutral character so they can be portrayed as a transgender, these characters like Eve are not able to push your narrative, your woke narrative. No, and that's why you have a problem, why you have to censor characters like Eve all the time. But yet you let full-on nudity and sex scenes in Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk 2077, and The Last of Us 2. And how like Mortal Kombat is perfectly fine with partial nudity and all this gore and violence and blood. Like you'll let games like this perfectly go without any censorship, but yeah, you censor the crap out of characters like Eve from Stellar Blade, or all the characters from Dead or Alive, whether if it's the fighting game or the volleyball game, simply because these are all female video game characters that are gender specific, that can't push your narrative because you cannot make these characters gender neutral because they have curvature of their body and they actually have breasts. And because these are characters that are, gender specific as female video game characters that have noticeable physical features of being a female, such as actually having breasts and a curvy hourglass body, you can't push these characters you can't use these characters to push your woke narrative, and that's why you don't like these characters, and that's why you're unhinged, because you want to, and like I said, you're unhinged because these woke journalists, consultants, localizers are hypocritical to no end. They are the most hypocritical individuals on the face of this world. and they're the ones that are unhinged because it's their hypocrisy that's completely unhinged. The fact that they keep preaching and praising and glorifying and supporting all this inclusion in the games that represent their ideal of what should be within video games when it comes to content being acceptable and appropriate is pretty much like I said, anything that's ideal to them that they feel should be represented. And that's basically transgenders. That's basically individuals that are gay and individuals that are obese. These are the things that are acceptable to them because they're able to use that to push their narrative. But because they can't do that with characters like Eve, this is offensive to them. And they play the victims and get these things censored. And if they can't get it excluded, that's what they'll go to next, is censorship, when they can exclude these characters. And there's their hypocrisy that's unhinged, not gamers. Gamers are not unhinged. Gamers understand what's going on. Gamers can spot the hypocrisy, and that's why gamers are upset. It's because they realize the unhinged hypocrisy from woke journalists, consultants, and localizers.
Is unreal. And he shows a post from Jessica Cogswell, who is an editor at GameSpot. It's insane what she says here. This is the most unhinged behavior I have seen in quite some time. And I have a 2-year-old. So this lady has a 2-year-old child. She is a mother, and she is saying that this is unhinged behavior. Well, let's see what this mother has to say in other posts in 2020. LOL, you know, supporting women sex workers on OnlyFans as a sexual woman is funny because you can definitely tell when the ORGASMS are fake, but you absolutely respect the hustle. I am HORNY with respect. Monetize the male gaze, boo. Get that bread and look good doing it. Amazing, the contradiction on display, and there is even more of that because Cooks said something again. He said Grum's double standard that she herself is guilty of. And I said in a post,
that's hilarious. See what I mean? They want to call gamers unhinged because they don't like censorship. They don't like hypocritical bullshit and nonsense, but yet they're the ones that are completely hypocritical. You know, and it's like they want to freaking call us the ones that gamers that, you know, are noticing all this censorship unhinged when they can't even be honest themselves. You know, and like I said, they advocate for one thing, but then they completely freaking dismiss or, you know, criticize the other thing. But yet, even though two things are kind of somewhat similar, you know, and because, you know, and like it's complete hypocrisy. Like, oh my God, Jesus Christ, man, it's so retarded. They'll be all in acceptance for this stuff, even though if something else should be within that same, you know, category. If it's not exactly what's ideal to them, all of a sudden that shouldn't be represented. But yet all this stuff should be represented. Like, and it's like they call out these gamers for being all like these horrible people, but yet they're hypocritical. How is like somebody having, you know, a preference of what attracts them of being a horrible person, and that somehow is the defining trait of saying somebody's a horrible person, and that somehow that's a defining trait just because they have a preference. But yet these people are absolutely hypocritical, but they're not bad people for being hypocrites. Like I said, the only thing that's really unhinged is them for being absolute two-faced hypocrites. Knowing like if anybody that's a bad person, I mean, it's showing that they're a horrible person. It's these woke journalists, consultants, and localizers, because their hypocrisy is on full display. Knowing gamers are just asking for games with no censorship because, you know, and that's legitimately, honestly, what their preference is. Knowing is that they don't want censorship, and they're actually standing by their guns. They're standing by their word that pretty much what they don't like and appreciate is censorship, and they're actually saying they don't want it. They're not saying I don't want censorship, but, you know, and I'm going to be in complete support of games that have it. You know, and like at least, you know, and have some, at least gamers have integrity. You know, and these journalists and these woke journalists, consultants, and localizers have no integrity whatsoever because they're absolutely hypocritical. At least when gamers say they don't want censorship, you know, and they stand by their word.
after quoting this guy, that this lady got cooked, to which Cook said, hey, I'm totally going to steal that. So I'm like, yes, awesome. But she says in a post in December 23, incredibly happy with the list we compiled and that I was able to not only write at lengths about Baldur's Gate 3, but include a cunnilingus joke as well. God bless video games. And this is her quoting. Here's the list of 10 best games of 2023. So Baldur's Gate 3 is a very lewd game. It has straight up body parts just dangling about. It has nudity. It has a bunch of sexual content and that take very many different forms, and she's completely okay with it. But when people get upset about Stellar Blade, apparently it's unhinged childish behavior, not even befitting of a 2-year-old. It's incredible the things that these people say. She says something else as well, an important Starfield thing no one is talking about. Way more.
Yeah, so like once again, I agree with this YouTuber right here that I'm subscribed to. Is absolutely, like I said, hypocritical. You want to like praise and clap and support, games like Baldur's Gate 3 when this game, has full on nude scenes and full on sex scenes with like pretty much the hot dogs just floating around, dangling all over the place, as well as like being able to have like full exposure of the female anatomy besides the male anatomy. And the fact that you can make your character a transgender or like gender neutral, and somehow like this is all perfectly fine to have full exposure and full on sex scenes because you can make your character gender neutral, and you can have like a hot dog dangling around all over the place and like full male and female anatomy being exposed while being able to make your character a transgender and gender neutral. Like this is perfectly completely acceptable. But you know what? Eve from Stellar Blade showing a bit of cleavage and gamers wanting to have that sex appeal with Eve from Stellar Blade and fan service. Somehow that makes them unhinged when they just don't want censorship, and they're actually standing by their word of not wanting censorship and like actually having integrity when they say they don't want censorship. But yet here you are being an absolute fucking hypocrite. Like who's the one that's unhinged?
More genital options than Baldur's Gate 3. And some of those schlongs are truly massive. Can't express how impressive they look when you're visiting low-gravity planets. Oh man, that's absolutely insane. But we're the bad guys, right? We're the ones who are pervs and bigots and weirdos. Hades is for the bisexuals, she said. So
yeah, and it's not just that we're considered pervs and bisexuals and all that stuff. Like we're always called incels. We're called sexist. We're called racist. Like literally, like you can imagine any insult that you can use towards somebody, and like these woke journalists, game consultants, these woke journalists, consultants, and localizers are always calling us, and insulting us with names and calling us names and shit like that. Like we've been called incels, we've been called sexist, we've been called racist, we've been called gloomers or boomers, whatever that word is supposed to mean. So yeah, and I'm sure they've even called us our things, purposely using these words to insult who male gamers are as individuals, when all they want is just asking for, to allow their personal preference to be allowed to be content that's allowed within a video game. But yet somehow like we deserve straight male gamers deserve to be insulted like this and called all these things just for having a preference. Like we're the scum of the world. At least we have integrity when we ask for things that we don't want censorship, and we have integrity and stand by our word that we don't want that, and we show it that we don't want that because we have integrity. But like, yeah, these journalists, these woke journalists, consultants, and localizers aren't horrible people when they're the ones that are always hypocritical. Like I said, they'll support one thing, but when something kind of falls in the same genre or category or whatever it is, if it's not ideal to them, then it's like, let's exclude it. We can't exclude it, and let's censor it, because we only want this stuff that's ideal to us to be included. And if anything falls within the same category that's not ideal to us, we need to exclude it. And if we can't exclude it, let's censor it, because we want to push our woke narrative. And that's all it is. It's manipulation to get people to conform. It's just manipulation for conformity and getting people to conform by either pretending that they're the victims and that they're offended by something. If they're offended about something by being a victim, and somehow it gives them like an immense turmoil or traumatal distress, that somehow they can get other people to conform and change who they are based from being the victim. and being offended about something. You know, at least gamers actually have integrity. Unlike these woke freaking feminist journalists and localizers that are absolutely hypocrites.
She's on the Hades 2 side of the argument. It is completely okay for these characters to look sexy, attractive, beautiful, etc. But of course, Stellar Blade, no. That game is on the chopping block. That game does not deserve to look pretty or to have the attention of male gamers or gamers in general. And she says, Hades is my game of the year. No, I haven't played it yet, but I really appreciate hotties. Oh, man. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, guys. It's right there in your faces. These people don't believe in the things that they're saying, but they get so much support from people who believe their lies. And speaking of lies, that Park Place pointed out a bunch of them. This is such a great article from John Trent. He points out a bunch of racist, terrible things she said in the past. Man, I don't know how these incel gamer dudes are expecting games to have hot characters and characters representative of them at the same time. LMAO at these replies. Get her life, weirdos. Did you guys not just see the things that she was saying prior? This is the kind of absurdity that I'm talking about. She says, quote, when did we ever say we wanted representation? Every other effing time your collective tweets about how woke characters and women are in every role and you miss cis het white men being allowed in things. Yeah, truly amazing. I mean, she says a bunch of other things that you can see in this post from John F. Trent. She says, the amount of white women I see constantly mourning the Queen or RBG when there are POC and trans women being attacked and in need of support is giving me a constant headache. Yeah, I'm getting a headache just reading all of the absurd nonsense that she's been saying. These people, again, they are not to be trusted. Don't rely on them to give you honest opinions about how they truly feel about something, because more often than not, you can expect them to be dishonest. But dishonesty isn't the only problem that Grums and other gamers who have this opinion have to deal with. He says right here, and the death threats are already starting. Got 2 of these this morning for tweeting about saving games.
Yeah, see, and this is what I'm talking about. Like, I'm a very, caring person. I try to treat others how I want to be treated. And I believe, in freedom of expression, free speech, and a free market. And, and I feel like everybody has a right to, free speech, a free market, and freedom of expression. But I don't support, in somebody going out of their way to use those rights and freedoms as a Canadian or American to threaten somebody, and to put hit on their life, just because their opinions differ from each other. There's what's that word I'm thinking of? I'm just gonna say difference. I'm having a brain fire right now. There's the word contrary. Yeah, contrary opinions. That's what I want to say, contrary opinions. But yeah, when somebody has contrary opinions and different preferences, that doesn't mean that, and that should give that individual a right to threaten another individual and call for violence towards them just because they have a difference of opinion and contrary beliefs or preferences. And violence is something that I don't agree with, something that I don't think anybody should use, even though, and they have that right to free speech, freedom of expression, and a free market. I really, besides not being a fan of censorship, and I don't support censorship of any kind, I definitely also am the kind of person that doesn't believe in calling for violence towards anybody, regardless how much you disagree with them. So for Grumps to be getting death threats already, just because, and he wants a version of Stellar Blade to be uncensored, is absolutely absurd. And it's just showing, like, male gamers like Grums and like myself, we're not the bad people. We're not the ones going out calling for death threats towards people because, and somebody disagrees with pretty much what our preferences are or what our likes are or, and things that we want to be seen in a video game. And we're not going out and freaking threatening somebody just because, and they have a difference of opinion or a different preference. Like I said, like, I know games can't cater towards everybody, but there should be a game for everybody. Even if a game can't cater towards everybody, a game should be made to always be able to at least cater towards a specific type of gamer or a specific set of gamers that have certain preferences that they want in their video games. And none of that content that they want should be excluded, period. There should be games for kids. There should be games for, people that are for males and females. There should be video games for teenagers. There should be video games for adults. And there should be a video game specifically for people that, have a preference of having, wanting and having, attractive female video game characters that have fan service and sex appeal. And there should be games for people that don't really care for fan service or sex appeal, but they can have those games as well. And that's why I'm saying, like, games shouldn't be made to be catered to everybody, because you're never going to be able to pull that off. But you should be making your game to cater towards a certain group of individuals. And like Stellar Blade, why I had so much hope in it was a game that was supposed to be catered towards male and female gamers that wanted this kind of content that we haven't gotten in 10 years of having sex appeal and fan service for Eve. Alright, a female video game character that's gender specific and not gender neutral, and that can't be used to push a woke narrative of transgender acceptance, of actually having a female video game character that can only have a narrative of being a female character and having fan service and sex appeal with that character as well. And then there should be games like that for male gamers and female gamers that want that kind of content, and then that shouldn't have been censored. And just for, and there should be games for people that don't want that kind of content. Like, there should be games for kids, like there should be games for the teenagers, and there should be games for adults. Like, so, yeah, and to be getting death threats is just absurd. It's something that I would never do. It's something that I don't think anybody should do towards somebody just because, and they have, there's a contrary of differences of opinion and preferences.
Unlike the wokies, I have receipts. From Jade, you should off yourself. Amazing how people can just say that publicly and expect zero backlash from it. And this is not the only death threat that he has got. Somebody apparently put a bounty on Grums just for saying, hey, uncensor this game. So they're like, I want $20,000 bounty on this guy's head. Now they want to hire hitmen to take me out.
Yes, this is absolutely absurd. Like, this is Canada, United States. I'm Canadian, and it's like, what happened to a free country? Like, you shouldn't be able to say things like that. And of course, free speech. This person has a right to say something like that. And it's like, but still, like, it just shows like the people that are actually the awful people are not the people that are actually requesting and wanting uncensored content in their video games. They're not the mentally disabled or mentally or ill people. The people that are mentally disabled and mentally ill people are the people like this person right here saying that he wants to put $20,000 to anyone that wants to essentially kill the Grums. Like, those are the ones that are mentally unhealthy, not the people like me or other gamers that just simply want uncensored content in our video games. Period. Just no censorship whatsoever in video games. Like, none. Period. Nothing. Zero. Nada. Not a dime, not a penny, nothing. No censorship of any kind, period whatsoever. We are the people that are not unhinged. We are the people that are not mentally ill. No, and we are the people that just simply want to play a game to escape from our reality so we can sit back on a couch and enjoy a video game that puts us in a whole different reality, that we can separate ourselves from the reality that we live in. There's nothing mentally unhealthy about that. And also wanting to have a preference of what attracts you, what you find visually attractive in a game. There's nothing wrong with having a specific preference of that either, where that doesn't make anybody mentally unhealthy. And like I said, the people that are usually mentally unhealthy are the woke consultants, journalists, and localizers, and even politicians, not pushing an acceptance of transgenderism and forcing people to comply and conform into accepting transgenderism. So, yeah, this person's unhealthy.
What did I tell everyone? They want you dead over game tweets. I've had 4 to 5 calls for violence today alone because I am asking for Stellar Blade to be restored to what was advertised. And I've actually seen people, believe it or not, say, no, he's actually threatening your life because of the fact that you told people to cancel PSN. Like, that matters. Why are you threatening for some...
Okay, and even how does that make sense? If I cancel my PlayStation Plus account, that's me. That's my right to choose that for somebody that's putting my money into something to own. If I don't want something that I paid for to own, and it's based off of a monthly subscription or a yearly prescription, if it's something that I use my own money to obtain, to own, or to rent, I have every right to determine what I want to do with that individual product, whether if it's online services or whether if it's like a physical, obtainable object that I can hold in my hand. You know, and I have every right to determine what I want to do with it if I'm the one that's putting my money into it.
Somebody to be killed or for a bounty to be put on somebody's head because of them saying cancel the PSN so that you can send a message to Sony to uncensor this game. There is no good reason on earth, not a single good reason on earth to call for somebody's death. And that's exactly what we're seeing in this photo. $20,000 to anyone that makes this dip S disappear. That's from Toneman at Toneman. I actually looked up his Twitter, and wouldn't you believe it, that Twitter does not exist. Probably because of what he said about Grums. Making threats like that. It's unbelievable that they can just publicly announce things like that. And that is the kind of thing that we're dealing with. People are so upset that we don't...
I disagree with what was said that this person posted. I think, like I said, I would never call for violence. I don't think it's acceptable. But once again, like I said, I don't want to be a hypocrite because I believe in free speech. As much as this is something that's just very distasteful, and the fact like he is calling for violence, which honestly I think is a very wrong thing to do. This is something that as free speech he should have the right to say, even though at the same time I don't think it is appropriate and something that shouldn't be said because it is calling towards violence. And I think as a person that has a right to freedom of speech, it comes with certain responsibilities. And that responsibility, you know, and is simply, you know, not endangering other people's lives. And the fact like this person's putting a 20,000 K on the Grums, to have him hit, to put a hit on him, is a completely irresponsible abuse of responsibility for the right that this individual has of free speech. And this is something that it's not acceptable. As much as this person has a right to say it, it's something that he shouldn't be saying. It's something that you know, and people kind of keep an eye on, and yeah, he deserves to pretty much be banned for a certain amount of time, X amount of time for saying something like that. Absolutely absurd that people can't get away with, you know, and saying things like this, even though, you know, and he has a right to say it. It's something that, you know, and he shouldn't be saying, and it's something that like it should be looked into. I think, like I said, nobody has a right to be calling for violence towards anybody. Even though in a way free speech does kind of, I guess, allow a person to express themselves with free speech, I think that kind of speech is unacceptable and definitely at least inappropriate. And this person should be called out for that kind of speech because, it's like I said, it's very inappropriate and it's uncalled for and unnecessary.
Want Stellar Blade to be censored, that they're literally threatening gamers' lives, saying, hey, I will pay $20,000 to somebody who takes this guy out? What? Really? And I'm not a lawyer, but I'm fairly certain that it's a crime to make such threats like that, especially in a public space. But I guess now people can't claim to Grums that he doesn't get death threats since they just openly admit it in public in front of everybody.
Yeah, that's a good point that Robert DreadRoborts brought up. Like I do, like I said, believe in free speech, freedom of expression, but I think that kind of speech is illegal because you're literally calling towards violence for somebody. So I think it really kind of is something that's illegal. I don't think you can really do that even with free speech because you're literally calling towards violence towards another individual. So yeah, I think, you know, and something like that is actually not allowed, and hopefully this guy gets found and he's brought to court, or, you know, and some justification of why he would say something like that, I think needs to be heard, and I think some kind of like justice for Grums should be given to Grums for, you know, and allowing somebody to say something like that to Grums and threatening Grums. I think, like I said, there should be a chat ban for this person for X amount of time. I think because like it's very severe for him calling towards harm towards another individual, especially not just physical harm but death threat. Like this guy should honestly just be completely banned from Twitter or banned from X. This kind of comment should never be appropriate to say, and I think this Tone Man guy definitely needs to pretty much be like permanently banned from X, because there's that kind of speech is just not appropriate whatsoever.
That they want him to die. That truly amazes me. I just can't imagine being in that mindset. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people on social media that are like that. If you simply do not want a game to be censored, they go out of their way to make sure that you are either threatened, canceled, silenced, or they'll just threaten your life. Or they'll say, hey, somebody please kill this person, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah, so I was saying earlier, you know, and like when they can't silence you, they go to insulting you, and you can see like with this, sometimes they go a lot further when it comes to these woke individuals pushing this woke ideology. They'll go to trying to silence you, and when they can't silence you, they go to insulting you. And if silencing you or then going to insulting you doesn't work, their next thing that they try and do is either, you know, to get you canceled or literally try and get you killed. So, you know, and see, this is what I mean by not just them being like unhinged, hypocritical, when honestly they're not unhinged. One's is the methods that they'll do to, you know, and call for violence towards other individuals that they simply don't agree with, that don't want to bow toe and like bend the knee and, you know, and conform to, you know, and accepting this woke ideology. You know, and like they'll go to that extreme when, like, honestly, proving with this YouTube video that they're really the people that are really unhinged is these woke individuals, these left wing woke individuals that are either feminist males or feminist females that are pushing a woke ideology, and just proving right here that they're really the unhinged ones, because like male gamers are not asking for much. They're just asking to get a product uncensored. Just being like, it's not fair for a character such as Eve to be censored because she's specifically a female video game character that can't be construed to be gender neutral. Because gender neutral for this character, for characters like Eve to be pushed by the woke narrative, and that, you know, and they don't want to have a character, female video game censored. So, you know, and the woke feminists pushing woke ideology can't use characters to make them gender neutral to push the narrative. You know, male gamers want attractive female video game characters that are gender specific, that have sex appeal and fan service. You know, and that's all male gamers are simply asking for. They're not going around calling for violence towards other individuals. They just are simply requesting that they don't want censorship and or any of their content censored in the video game. That's it. That's like the most simple. That's really only the request that a lot of male video gamers have. It's just, you know, I need to stop censoring content. They're not calling towards violence towards anybody or having anybody's life taken away or a hit on other individuals. They just don't want censored content. And me, for one, I also agree. I don't want censored content in my games, period, whatsoever. And the ones that are obviously unhinged are these woke feminists pushing this woke ideology, whether if it's a female or male feminist, or that are, you know, are the ones that are unhinged. Because, like I said, they want inclusion, diversity, and representation, but only at what's ideal to them. And then even if something else fits in within the category or genre or anything like that, they get that specific thing that's not ideal to them, even though it falls within the same category, excluded because that's not ideal. But yet they'll force representation of what's ideal to them, but exclude anything else that isn't ideal. And when they're not able to exclude characters like Eve, because, like I said, they can't push the woke narrative, because Eve is gender specific and not gender neutral, and she's a female character that is really made to be seen as only a female video game character. Woke feminists can't use Eve to push their woke narrative, and so that's why characters like Eve are problematic, and that's why they have to do whatever they can to exclude characters that look like Eve out of video games. And when they can't exclude characters like that, they censor the character. And so you can see that they're the ones that are unhinged, because they're going from point A to point C and more and more extremism. And what I mean by extremism is, like I said, they'll first go to exclusion. If they can't get exclusion, then they'll go to censorship. And then if they can't get censorship, well, then they'll go to insulting male gamers. And if they can't go to insulting male gamers, Then well, actually goes to like silencing. So it's like goes to excluding characters, can't exclude them, censoring if they can censor them, silencing if they can't silence male gamers. You know, and it's canceling them. You know, and it's insulting them. So it's like when male gamers are just simply asking for no censorship period of whatsoever in the content of the games that they're playing, and that's all they're asking for. You got these woke feminists pushing this woke ideology that goes to exclusion of specifically female video game characters like Eve or anyone that resembles a female video game character, because they can't make that character, they can't use that character to push the woke narrative and agenda. They go to, okay, well, let's first get this character, exclude this character, get this character excluded from the game. If we can't do that, let's censor this character. If we can't censor the character, female video game character, well, now let's start attacking male gamers. No, and let's try and silence them. Oh, we can't silence them. Let's try to insult them. Oh, we can't insult male gamers. Let's go to canceling them. So you see, like, they're the ones that are unhinged because they're taking more and more drastic measures to get what they want by playing the victim from acting like they're offended about something. They'll go from, like I said, excluding female video game characters like Eve or anyone that looks like Eve because she's gender specific and then she can't be construed to be gender neutral and can only be seen as a female video game character. So the woke ideology can't be, woke feminists can't push Eve and push the narrative of woke ideology with Eve. So they go to excluding characters like Eve. If they can exclude it, they go to censoring characters like Eve. If they can't censor characters like Eve from Stellar Blade, they'll go and start attacking male gamers. When they can't get their way with female video game characters like Eve, when they can't exclude characters like Eve or censor characters like Eve, they'll get, like I said, they'll go to start attacking male gamers. They'll try and silence male gamers. They'll try, if they can't silence male gamers, they'll insult male gamers. If they can't insult male gamers, they'll try and cancel male gamers or threaten their lives. So if anyone that's really unhinged, is, like I said, it's these woke feminists that are either male or female feminists that's trying to push a woke ideology.
The fact of the matter is, whether or not it's Shift Up's fault or Sony's fault, and whether it's cleavage being covered, blood being covered, or dialogue being localized the wrong way, censorship is wrong. People disagree with it. Most of the customer base that buy Stellar Blade are buying it because of the fact that it supports freedom of expression. You know, it appeals to the people who have been supporting those types of games for years on end. Now, I totally understand that some people out there are like, well, maybe you shouldn't make such a big deal out of this. At least we have Stellar Blade, and she looks pretty in all other forms, blah, 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 this, blah, 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 that.
Okay, like I was saying, yes, it's a minor victory. It's actually a win in that aspect. We've actually got a win on our hands because we finally got a character that looks like Eve in video games. I'm not saying it's not a win. That's definitely a win. I'm glad we finally got a character like Eve from Stellar Blade in video games because she's a female character that can't be seen any other way but as a female video game character. And woke feminists that's what pushing this woke ideology can't use Eve to push their woke narrative because Eve is obviously a female video game character that's not seen any other way or can't be seen as any other way other than a female video game character. So she's a character that's gender specific and not gender neutral, and because she's not gender neutral, she can't be used to push the woke narrative. So yes, we got a win. There's a one win for Stellar Blade. Is that Eve is actually a female video game character and can't be seen or used in any other way. It's a win. But it's not a win at the same time. Why? Because of censorship. All right. So yes, we're climbing up that mountain. We're climbing up that hill, but we're not on that top of the hill yet. There's still on the top of that hill. There's still woke individuals working in Sony. And working in these firms such as journalists, consultants, and localizers. Right now, they're on the top of the hill, and we're just finally getting up that hill. Yes, it's a victory. Yes, it's a win. But until we keep fighting back, and until we keep at least being the ones on the top of that hill, things like what happened to Eve from Stellar Blade is going to keep on happening. And if we give up, it's just going to progress. I mean, it's just going to revert back to the state it was before, where we're not even going to get characters that are gender specific in video games when it comes to female video game characters. Then we're just going to get characters that look average in general. So woke feminists can push their woke ideology, so they can use characters that look gender neutral, that can be portrayed as the values that woke individuals have, that they can use these female characters to push a woke narrative. And that's what's going to happen if we give up. It's just going to revert back to that state. So yes, it's a win. Yes, we're finally climbing up that hill, but we got to keep going. We got to keep, putting in that fight that we don't want censored content in video games whatsoever, period. And we got to keep going up that hill until, and we're also the ones on top of that hill as well. Because our voices are being drowned out in silence and censored because of woke individuals that are either consultants, localizers, and journalists, and woke individuals working within companies of Sony or Xbox. So, and our voices are not going to be heard until we're on that top of that hill with them. And we got to keep fighting and not allowing ourselves to be censored from woke feminist ideology being pushed by woke feminists that are journalists, consultants, and localizers. So this is the right step. What Grumps is doing is perfectly the best thing that male gamers can do right now if they don't want censored content, period.
But again, if you accept any forms of censorship, that will just give them the ammo they need to bring even more censorship in the future. That is what gamers are trying to prevent from happening. They don't want censorship in their video games. They don't want Shift Up to bend the knee and say, hey, Sony is doing us a solid, so yeah, we just kind of patched it in that some of these outfits are censored so that we can have our win. But gamers know that Shift Up has so much potential, and they don't want to see another gaming studio ruined by Sony's pressure of inserting their agenda into everything that they have. But again, everybody, this thing is just starting to pick up some serious traction. Almost 20,000 people, maybe already 20,000 people have signed this petition, and you have a chance to do it too if you believe that Shift Up and Sony made a mistake in censoring certain content in this game, and you believe that it should be uncensored. You can say whatever you want about the Shift Up creator, you can say whatever you want about Sony and who did what and why, but the fact of the matter is that gamers are calling for a reversal on this decision. Regardless of who made the decision, they just want a reversal and they want the game as intended because this is the purchase that they made. And it is possible. You saw what happened with Tomb Raider. You saw what happened with the World of Warcraft private server. Gamers have a voice, and that voice matters. And I have shown you today proof that your voice actually has an effect on the gaming industry. And if you speak up and are honest about it by going to www.change.org/p/free-stellar-blade, you can be one of those voices that makes a serious change, and maybe we can have the game that we were supposed to have from the very beginning. And that is
Yes, this is what we need to do. Like I said, we're just climbing up that hill is a victory, but we need to keep climbing up that hill so our voices are heard. So our voices aren't drowned out, so our voices aren't censored. This is exactly what game woke journalists, consultants, and localizers want. They want to drown our voices out. They want to censor our voices. And, and if we stop now and we give up and we only allow this one win, and it's just going to revert back to the way it was before. And we're never going to get the content that, male gamers want, which is simply no censorship, period, of any video game. And I think, and gamers, need to stand up. They need to be proud of their preferences of what they find visually attractive and what's desirable to them, and use their voice and speak out loud and make sure that their voices are heard. And I'm not saying call towards violence or for violence, but, and do exactly what Grumps is doing, and just express yourself vocally in a very respectful and a polite manner about things that matter to you, even if somebody says that you're making a big deal out of nothing. And express with passion what you care about and what matters to you, and keep expressing it verbally until our voices are heard and our voices are no longer censored and drowned out by woke feminist ideology that is being pushed by woke journalists, consultants, localizers, and people within and woke individuals within Sony and Xbox. And we need to be proud, we need to be loud, and we need to be strong. We need to be able to walk up that mountain and not just take this one victory and then give up. We need to keep going forward, and we need to keep respectfully expressing ourselves verbally that we just don't want censorship, period, in any of our games anymore. And I think, like I said, Grumps is doing the right thing. I think people kind of doing what they can to have to express themselves verbally is the right thing to do, and I'm glad to see that. Keep your composure. Keep your composure, Curtis. Keep your composure. Keep your composure. Keep your composure. Keep your composure. And I'm glad that people are doing what they can to have their voices heard.
That's all I've got for you guys in this video today. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you haven't
Robert Dreads. I already gave them subscribe to his video. I've already given him tons of thumbs up on his videos. I also like YouTubers such as Mugen Lord. He has done absolutely phenomenal videos when it comes to the censorship and nullification in the West. Mugen Lord is a perfect YouTuber as well. And there's tons of other ones that I definitely would like to mention, but I can't recall them off the top of my mind. But yeah, I'm glad that things are starting to take a change, and we just got to keep moving forward and trying our best to make sure that we're verbally expressing ourselves respectfully about just not wanting censorship, period, in any games. And it's just like I said, absolutely hypocritical that we have games like Cyberpunk 2077, The Last of Us 2, what else? Mortal Kombat 1, and Baldur's Gate 3, and having immense and intense gore, full-on nudity, full-on sex scenes, and those games don't get censored, and those games are perfectly acceptable. That kind of content is included in games. But yet, and characters like Eve need to be censored, and I already mentioned the reasons why they do it. But, and like I said, I don't believe in censorship. There shouldn't be censorship in video games, especially when a game has a rated M for mature. In that case, no matter what the character is, who the character is, or what the character is wearing, there should be no censorship period whatsoever. And, yeah. Let's just, stand up, no longer have our voices drowned out or censored or silenced by these woke individuals that want to push this woke ideology. I'm glad we have, YouTubers that are, speaking out about this, such as, this person right here that I'm using to react to what's going on with the censorship. Great props to this YouTuber. Excellent job. I'm going to minimize the screen so I can make sure I'm saying his name right, his YouTuber tag correctly. But and also thanks to other YouTubers that I'm bringing light to this situation. And yeah, so it was a pleasure reacting to this. I kind of maybe talked through it a lot. I didn't mean to do it, but what I have to say, it's just very expressive, and it means a lot to me to be able to finally get games with no censorship for any character in a video game, regardless of what that character is or who that character is or what they're wearing. And just definitely no censorship period in any game, especially when it's rated M or even teen. It's different if it's rated has a lower rating, but when you're rated M, there's no excuse for censorship when you're rated M.